Yeah, I think so.
All right, fantastic. We are live for another wonderful Affray Interactive SCP 5K event Discord. Today I have with us Kyle Fitzpatrick joining us once again, the lead art director of SCP 5K.
Excellent. Hey guys, keen to be here. Excited to do some SCPs with you all and show you some pretty cool insights into how we go about designing these different creatures for SCP-5K.
One of the things that I always hear about are people saying that, like, is this SCP going to be in the game? Is this SCP going to be in the game? Is this SCP going to be in the game? And while this may not necessarily mean that these future SCPs will be in the game, I think this will be a very interesting illustrative process on what the Affray design philosophies are in terms of how do you translate it, how do you Affrayify it, how do you make it 5K worthy. I would love to hear your suggestions of what SCPs you'd like to see Kyle tackle. Please pick out fun creatures, more less abstract SCPs. But Kyle, is there an SCP you'd like to get us started while we wait for people to get more active in the Discord chat and YouTube chat?
Yeah, sure. So I picked a couple that I went ahead and researched in advance. I can start off with some of them and then, see how it goes. If anybody has any specific suggestions, by all means, just pop them into the chat. Otherwise, I'll probably just roll a dice and pick one of these to start off with. And we'll go from there.
Sounds like a plan. So what made you decide pick on this fine selection of 5 SCPs?
So ultimately, what I'm looking for specifically for this live stream is to design a creature in the same way that we've designed other creatures in the game. So what I'm looking for is less like mimetic SCPs and more things that are a physical creature, so to speak. I know there's a little bit of there's not too many of them beyond the initial series, but there have been a couple that specifically in the 3000 series that were quite cool. And these ones are pretty interesting because they all have quite different physiologies. So I thought that it would be a good, nice selection to sort of move forward with and to show you how, despite the fact that there can be quite significant differences in the anatomy of the creature, we still have very similar design philosophies around how we approach that shape language for each of those creatures.
Awesome. So let's roll the dice and let's see which one we get.
All right. All right, looks like we've got number 4, the headlights. So we'll start off with that one, I think. Move those out of the way. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, the headlights are a pretty interesting SCP. They're kind of like 2 bipedal creatures that kind of stalk people, lone drivers in particular, when they're kind of just in the middle of nowhere with no one else around. They start to bolt behind the cars. They can travel at extreme speeds. The tops of their heads are transparent, and they have this web-like organelle that surrounds their brain that produces an extreme intensity of light. And they use this property to basically chase down drivers who will mistakenly think of them as headlights racing behind the car. They usually push the driver to the extreme, to the point which they eventually have a crash. And once they're compromised, they will then proceed to feed on them. They do have a pretty interesting anatomy from what I can understand from the wiki. I've just jotted down a couple of different key points. So I guess to sort of kickstart the process, once we have an SCP decided, and so that would be, does this, there's lots of decisions around whether that fits the story, whether that fits the intended gameplay purpose. But once we have an SCP decided, we will then go and research what physical properties and what notes of interest are sort of key to that creature from the wiki. I've done that here, and I've just jotted down a couple of quick notes just surrounding things I need to be aware of when designing it. The main things that are really here are just visual, because of course this is a visual exercise, but of course it's bipedal, it's nocturnal. I've mentioned the bloated head and the web of bioluminescent organs. Interesting thing is that it has no eyes or skull that are perceivable. It's not carbon based, which is an interesting kind of point there. So already I'm sort of thinking of, okay, what references exist that I can draw from to pull from for this kind of thing. I know it hunts in pairs. It's very fast, so the anatomy needs to be quite specific. And an interesting thing that's mentioned at the very end of the article was how its paw prints resemble child handprints. This is sort of starts to draw more connotations towards the kind of horror elements, because there's two themes that we really need to consider with creature design, and that is A, is this like paranormal horror based, and B, is this does this have like a spider theme to it? And so in line with that horror thematic, the handprints that resemble like child handprints, that's a really interesting visual that we can pull from. So once we've got a fairly stable list like this, then we also need to consider, okay, what kind of gameplay requirements does this thing have? What kind of enemy is it? Is this thing like a ranged enemy? Does it produce some sort of area of attack? Is it something that you have to melee against? Does it just purely serve as an environmental hazard? Or does it perhaps support another enemy? Does it not necessarily hunt you by itself, but does it help facilitate the hunting of you from another SCP? So for this particular one, I would consider, given that it's extreme speed, in the article, it does not feed when it's contained. It will only feed if it's out in the wild. So given these two properties, I would say that it's probably most likely that it wouldn't be feeding on anyone in-game, but also it moves at very high speeds, so it's probably going to be something that charges. So I'll pop that down real quick.
So
something that's probably...
So to bring up an interesting question, I love hearing all this and all the sort of like thought that goes into it. So just doing a little research on my end, it seems like the headlights is kind of like what's most popular is kind of like a Jurassic Park raptor design. So how much of that do you feel obligated to stick towards, and how much do you feel from an artistic standpoint do you feel of like deviating from that sort of like unspoken canon?
So first and foremost, what I'll do is I'll actually, when I go through like this list and I go through the wiki, I will take note of exactly what specific references have been done. Like the sort of Velociraptor aesthetic is something that's been applied to that creature. It's not something that's explicitly written inside of the wiki document. So I know that that's something that I can deviate from. Given that there's no specifics around its anatomy aside from the fact that it's bipedal, there is the factor that it runs extremely fast, and so I can see exactly why it's been interpreted in that particular way. But I think there's other ways that we could interpret it too. So off the top of my head, we could probably go with something like, I think emus are the fastest land bird, and they're flightless, so they run at extreme speeds. So you could go with something like that. Alternatively, there's also things like kangaroos. Similar morphology, but a very different body structure. So there's different ways you could approach this. You could either have something that's just bipedal or something that relies on the bounce and spring of a tail. There's a couple of different things that you could do with it. The key characteristic, I guess, for designing something for 5K is to make something that hasn't really been done before. So if there's something that's been designed in a particular way, how can we still respect the source material but interpret it in a way that's unique? And that's the key goal, I guess, for approaching designs that already have a particular canon.
Fascinating to hear your process. We have a question from Wolf. your research is impeccable indeed. I know my question is not fully about art, but I was wondering if there are any plans for any more durable enemies with a focus on weak points or probably an area boss of sorts.
Yeah, so we do have other enemies planned for the game, but for the purposes of this exercise, this is not, yeah, for full clarity, this is not something that is going to make it into the game, or, you know, maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's just purely an exercise to show you guys the process.
If you,
I probably won't speak too much about additional creatures that may or may not make it in.
I'll say this much: if any, oops, sorry, to cut you off. I was going to say, if you have any millionaire or billionaire friends who would like to talk to us, then I'm sure we can figure out a way to get this SCP in the game. But you got to go hit up your billionaire uncle or your millionaire uncle, and then we can get the headlights in there.
Yeah. But yeah, essentially that's kind of what we're looking at. So after this point, once we've got all of this information jotted down, so we'll go, okay, so this is some sort of enemy that will do a charge attack. We've got these notes. Okay, cool. So now what we'll do is we'll jump into jotting out a basic sketch, and we'll try to work out a simple shape language for its anatomy, bearing in mind that we want to keep it as grounded as possible. We don't want to leave it too fantastical. We want it to have some sort of sense of believability. And so the best way to do that is by looking at references of real world things, as I mentioned. So I don't have any with me at the moment, but we'll see how we go. So what's my brush? Okay. All right. So let's see. How does an emu kind of look? So you have their neck, I guess. So that's an interesting thing. So because this thing is extremely fast, it would be quite aerodynamic. And so the speed at which it moves is quite significant. So I imagine the musculature and perhaps the skeletal structure would be quite delicate, or perhaps it even has like hollow bones to be able to propel itself with enough force for it to be able to move forwards.
Ooh, I like where
Emus
they
kind of have that kind of structure.
Going with the death emu. I'm sure you've heard about the legendary emu war of Australia.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we lost that one.
The bird dinosaur that was so tough that the entire country of Australia could not successfully contain it.
Let's see, we could also try for some sort of more kangaroo like creature. So it could have some sort of elongated tail that it uses to really spring forward. And it doesn't mention additional limbs, so I'm just going to go with purely bipedal with this thing. It's predatory, so it will have some sort of mouth for ingesting its prey, but it may not be necessarily as visible when it's in its attacking phase, I suppose. Sorry, when it's bolting after you. Maybe there's potential for.
So that brings up a good, interesting design question. So obviously, you know, it probably wouldn't be built to eat the player unless there was like a death animation or something. So ostensibly from a game design standpoint, it doesn't need a mouth. I guess, do you think from like an artistic standpoint, for like a good creature design, is you need empathy, you need to kind of understand the anatomy of this creature, so you would want to have a mouth? I guess where does that artistry and design function kind of converge for your aesthetic?
Yeah, so I guess just in light of wanting to make it feel grounded, we would have to approach giving it some sort of relatable morphology. So of course, this thing it is a predatory creature, so it's going to have the various elements that you would expect for such. But yeah, how that manifests is up to I guess up for interpretation. What else could we do? We could also potentially show it front on. So, I nearly forgot actually. So this thing I've stated we're going to try and make it like a charge, sort of like a charge enemy. So what that is going to basically mean is that we will have to find a way for this thing to be able to attack with a charge. So thinking about this logically, this thing has a glowing head. It's described as being quite bulbous. It runs at extreme speed, so the most logical way that it would probably attack or rather kill its prey, especially if it's bird-like, would be to have some sort of beak. So perhaps this casing, this bulbous transparent casing that it has, is somewhat hard, or at least like keratinous towards the tip. Maybe that's something that we can explore. And then again, if this thing is charging at extreme speeds, I think it gets to like 180 kilometers per hour. So maybe it would have some sort of additional element, maybe some sort of spinal element that helps compact or rather deal with the impact at which it would be, attacking at something, something to protect its internal skeletal system. There's a few different ways that we could approach it. So if this thing's just turned really quickly. Cool. Okay. So got a couple of sketches. Let's see, this guy, I'm going to give this sort of treatment of this sort of musculature and spinal kind of element here. This is kind of cool because we could actually draw in some of that kind of spider aesthetic. We could add like sort of, additional bony elements that perhaps extend below into the flesh. This could be really interesting and it would help to create a kind of, how would I describe it? Kind of more like a creepy feel. Like there's a couple of specific visuals that we try to draw with each of these with each of the creatures that we approach. One of those being like sort of bony elements. It's a little bit tricky to describe exactly what I'm talking about, but you'll see as we progress with one of these designs. But we try to have this kind of almost rib-like structure. Bones, joints, make it kind of feel like there's emaciated parts to these creatures. We do this a lot because it helps to make something feel uncomfortable. Along the lines with that, we also do something quite similar with holes. Like it's kind of like visual noise, I guess, but we add like a lot of web-like or like trypophobic holes to a lot of the textures and designs. And we do other things too. So like the gelatinous sort of head, like this kind of aesthetic is pretty common in some other areas of the creatures. So like in this particular example, we've got this gelatinous element here. To kind of draw that back throughout the rest of the design, perhaps that could be replicated on the thigh, which is taking up quite a significant part of this dude's body. We could also have small sections of that kind of aesthetic featuring throughout the rest of him.
I love the bony back. I have to ask, by any chance, it to me feels very H.R. Giger-esque. Would you say that's been kind of like a unconscious sort of design that you've incorporated? Because I think you're right. The like bony emaciated thing, the bioorganic thing is always kind of like something unsettling and is very attractive in monster design.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very good point actually. I personally, I'm a big fan of Geiger, so I do have a lot of influence of his in my own art. But also, it's kind of quite appropriate for this dude in particular because he's described as, I think it, yeah, not being carbon based, which I believe is one of the key aspects of Alien was that it was not supposed to be a carbon based life form. It was meant to be silicon based, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's certainly not outside of the realm of what we could do with this. Maybe this guy. So they're meant to be quite bulbous, but maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe it kind of extends back. Maybe this creature has, because I believe they have like a kind of like a display for how they communicate with each other, sort of blink their headpiece on and off, which maybe there's different sections to this thing that light up in different ways.
There was
Maybe there's different organelles.
There was an interesting suggestion from chat that I was kind of curious to run. He said, Birdie asks, hey, Mr. Kyle, what if its headlight was more like an anglerfish style thing, like a tendon that slinks out of the mouth and projects its light? I guess, does that work with your design philosophy, or what do you think of that suggestion?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That could definitely work. So if we had some sort of opening at the throat and this thing kind of lolls out and it's exposed, that could be interesting. I believe you can see its brain present and then the organs are around it. Being able to run might make it a little trickier, but that is a very interesting concept. Actually, you know, if we really wanted to get into the specifics of it, we could end up doing something almost frog-like. Because if you've ever seen like a frog skull, the way that they swallow, their eyes actually pop through the hole in their skull and helps to push their food back down their throat. It's a bit of an odd way to consume things because your eyes are usually pretty soft and you don't really want to have too many things coming into contact with them. But maybe that's something that we could do. So this thing could have some sort of do some sort of approach like that. So maybe it's visible. There's like the palate ends quite close, and then we can see this thing with the mouth open.
Ooh, that is interesting with the almost like the amorphous egg design.
Yeah, could be an interesting way to approach it. And his teeth all lined up in there.
I almost wonder, like, hypothetically, let's say you didn't want to have a charging enemy, and this enemy was kind of like a mobile flashbang, where what it would do is it would look at you, and then it would open up its mouth, and then that would kind of like flashbang your guy.
Yeah. So maybe it doesn't have like a long neck in that case. Perhaps it's okay. let's see. Okay, yeah, okay. So what if he did have, because he does leave, I think he leaves like the shoes behind, and he also leaves little scraps of clothing. So maybe he does have some sort of prehensile limbs at the front of his body to be able to assist with that. But in light of the flashbang thing, maybe that's kind of like the bulbous part is quite a lot more of his body. So let's say it's something like that. And you have his brain is kind of situated up along his spine. And you have all of the web-like organ around. So essentially, the whole upper section of his body becomes that light part.
Well, just
A little
seeing
bit comedic looking. But
just seeing looking at all these sketches, it just gives you an idea of like how many different directions. So I guess when do you know you're like kind of like going in the right direction? Is it instinctual? Is it just sort of like a team mentality?
So the way in which we come up with with like a this is it, this is the thing, is whether it satisfies the criteria of the themes, and also the visual shape language of the other creatures that we have as well. And the third thing being, is it grounded enough? You know, does this feel like something that exists? So I might go with just this guy in the middle. He feels fairly grounded. Like the anatomy doesn't look too much like something that wouldn't exist. It also kind of exhibits elements from other creatures that we've got in the game, and also it basically follows a couple of the different things that we're after. It's able to charge, it's able to attack in some sense. So I think we'll push forward with that one for the moment. So if I grab this guy, keep those there actually, but I'll make them small. All right, so this guy. Drop that down. Hey, there we go. Okay, so I'm thinking just the rough shape of this head. It's almost like a how would I describe it? It's almost like a Portuguese man of war in a way. So I'd probably look at like jellyfish, different species of jellyfish and things to try and work out like how that brain structure is going to look like. Like perhaps I think there's a couple of different species out there that have like an array of these kind of bulbous elements. So maybe that's something that we could approach with this. Because the cool thing is with creatures like this, there's not a steadfast, this is exactly what this thing is. It's all entirely speculative. So you can push that to a degree and end up with something quite unique, which is always a lot of fun.
I guess that's the beauty of working with SCPs is that you can draw from so many different inspirations, and outside of what's in the wiki article, you've got a huge, wide range you can work with. Considering you worked with so many other creatures, is there like a favorite monster of the past few years that's like really appealed to you from a design standpoint?
There is actually. But I'm not sure if I can really talk about it quite yet. No, wait, maybe I can.
Not related to the SCP games. It could be from like a TV game,
okay.
movie.
Okay, gotcha. In that case, probably one of my favorite creatures was actually the Grievers from the Maze Runner.
Oh, really?
That was a very interesting. Yeah. It's a very interesting design and quite different from how it was described in the books. But yeah, it was just very, very different. It was quite a literal take on the sort of biomechanical sort of thematic, which has kind of been dominated, I guess, by the works of Geiger, and it's not really been change too much from there. But the idea of having some sort of creature that you not only have cultivated from scratch, so already it's like a malformed thing that shouldn't exist, but you've applied it to this quite uncomfortable um, contraption that allows it to move in a way in which it just simply was never meant to move. There's just certain qualities to it that just really uh, they're just very compelling. It's just very kind of it's dark and it's just interesting in how it was sort of approached, I guess.
Yeah, you and I both love the work of Ken Barthelme, I think.
Oh, hey Trey.
Yeah, yeah. That is Ken
Yeah,
Barthelme, right? That did that?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Love his works. It's awesome, awesome stuff.
Birdie has an
So
interesting
let's say we give
question. Who usually designs the human entities like the SCP Guard, GOC, UIU, and how would you guys design the more out-of-the-box MTFs like the Cyborg God guys? I miss Maze Runner. I used to read it in my 18-hour flights.
So it just depends. We did have a character artist for a little while. Sometimes I've designed things. So like I designed the D class. The guards, I believe, were made entirely from scratch by Dean, our 3D lead. And similarly, we've had like other factions and other individuals produced by other artists as well. So I guess it depends entirely on who's on the team at that particular point in time, and also what kind of thing we're looking for. So if we're looking for something that's really tactical, we'll of course go for like Dean, and we've got John Tempter is one of our character artists and one of our 3D guys. They have an extremely broad knowledge base on what sort of gear is used by particular people for particular purposes. So we usually have consultation with people like them to be able to work out exactly what would be held by these particular, what would be carried by these particular people. So yeah, just depends really.
So, any particular jellyfish that you're looking for in this guy's design right now? Because I definitely love what you're doing with the head, trying to give it that, amorphous quality, but still that sort of bulbous, I'm going to knock you to the ground.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just thinking of like Portuguese Man of War. So they're kind of like I guess they're kind of like that shape really. The surface of the water, and they have all the tentacles that just reach down. Something like that, I think, might be interesting, especially if this is kind of like a hard surface at the tip. It'd be blunted, it wouldn't be entirely sharp. It would be like over years of use, it would probably wear down quite a bit.
I guess in your sort of philosophy, would you say environmental storytelling or biology is like informs your design when you're like making these? Because it seems like you do take into consideration trying to tell the story within the character design.
I guess it's a bit of both, really. You want to be able to showcase a believable biology of the creature, but you also want to showcase elements that contextualize it, right? So, actually, before I move on, it's a really good point, actually. So, the I guess, yeah, okay. So let's consider, right? If this thing has just been captured, it's probably going to appear pretty much how it would in nature, right? Whereas if we want to add more story implication to it, has this thing been in containment for a long time? Has it already been experimented on? Is this even the original anomaly itself, or has it been hybridized? What exactly has happened to this thing? I know they don't eat in containment, so perhaps this thing's more emaciated. It's more kind of it's starving. So maybe there's elements like that that you would consider for that kind of thing. But for this particular instance, I think I'll just go with the standard. He's just been kind of captured fairly recently.
And that's sort of like the reason for its hardened aesthetic, but also kind of emaciated. It hasn't been able to hunt in its natural habitat.
Yeah, we'll say it's been captured for a couple of weeks or so. So it's getting hungry. We'll say these kind of plate-like growths are kind of helping to support the impacts of that. Given that he's arched forward so much, might add some vertebrae that really protrude up here, because he might have like almost like lateral muscles that pull down and are holding and supporting the body up like that. So this kind of curves back in there. And sort of gullet of sorts.
Have you ever seen?
Really emaciated.
There's a famous YouTube series called Pitch Meeting. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you by any chance?
I can't say that I have.
Basically the concept is there's like a screenwriter guy and like movie producer guy, and the reason I bring it up is that like usually the movie producer guy kind of like agrees and says like gullets are tight, and usually says it inappropriately, like the most awkward thing, but every time you like have a design thing, I'm like,
Gotcha.
yeah, gullets are tight.
Gotcha. So I'll do something like that. Maybe sort of see almost like supporting bone work around where those ribs would lie.
Ooh, the bones are very, very cool.
Cheers. Yeah, I think something like that might work all right. Kind of add these grooves so that it's clear where he's like from like a top view, I guess, where he's kind of tilting his head back and forth. You can sort of see little grooves that when he like tilts in one particular direction, they would close in. So that's what these sections would be. Like it's just essentially where you would have cartilage on the inside, but just giving a little bit of range of motion as he's moving, but enough to support him and to lock in place. Because moving at those speeds, even the wind, like the wind pressure, would create a lot of force, especially on the neck. So something to just help support that as he's moving about.
Wolf has an interesting question. Actually, a question. Maybe the creature would use the head as a tough mace, and the open part is actually bulletproof. As the inventor of this iteration of SCP 745, what do you say to this, since you are inventing the canon for this creature?
Sure. Yeah, that could definitely be the case. Wait. Which one was that one? The open mouth one. This one over here.
That is a good question. I did not specify. Just maybe the creature would use the head as a tough mace, and the open part is actually bulletproof. I don't know if he was referring to that one, or what he meant. I just
Gotcha. But that's a cool idea, actually. I think I quite like that, actually. Hang on. We'll see if we can give this a more mace-like quality.
For Charmin asks, what kind of stuff did you draw as a kid?
Creatures and dragons mostly, and spiders, which is kind of appropriate, I guess.
Just out of curiosity, if you're a big dragon fan, were you? What do you think? Did you watch House of the Dragon? And if so, which was your favorite dragon design?
I didn't. I actually haven't seen any of the anything from Game of Thrones yet. I'm quite uncultured in that sphere.
Oh man, if you love,
need to change. I need to get into it.
Well, I have conflicted feelings considering how how that ended up. But I just thought is like, dragons were always kind of lame, but Game of Thrones made dragons cool again. So I thought, if you grew up drawing dragons, you'd be like, yes, my time has come.
Yeah. I have to watch it. I have to give it a crack.
At the very least, you should go fire up a YouTube compilation, all dragon scenes.
Oh yeah. I do remember though, like when Skyrim came out, like way back when. I remember I was enthralled by the dragon designs in that one simply because of how different like it was. Like they did something. It was just very simple. It was like on the chest, they added like the sternum. They just added these huge whopping blades, which was just something that I hadn't seen in designs prior to that. It was kind of cool.
What was that series or video game again?
Skyrim.
Oh, Skyrim. Skyrim helped a lot of kind of bringing dragons back because like I don't know, I feel like dragons were just kind of seem as lame, something you'd put on like a wizard van or a wizard lame van with a spray painted wizard and he'd be fighting a dragon. But dragons have been coming back.
It's kind of cool. Let's see. Work out musculature for this guy. Calf. It's a semi-calf, so it's going to have bone's going to come through there. So it's going to have a fair few ligaments running up. And then a notch in there. That would be ligament there. Ligament. That's going to stretch up to there. These would be like tendons. Have quite a deep groove, I imagine. And I'll get to the hands in a bit because those are key parts to this thing.
Weird but okay mentions. What about Panzer Dragoon, the rail shooter with the crazy designs? By any chance, were you a Sega fan growing up? Did you ever see the Panzer Dragoon saga?
I didn't. I did have a Sega, but I didn't get access to a lot of games back then. I had Alex the Kid, and I think it was Alien 3, and maybe it was like a racing game. But yeah, beyond that, unfortunately, didn't have too many titles.
Oh, so you didn't have a Sega Saturn. Panzer Dragoon always had like really unique designs. It was such a cool thing because everything was like bioorganic. But I wouldn't blame you if you never played those games. They're really obscure. And they were only available on a console that was like pretty much dead from the outset. So if you're not familiar with it, no hard on, no shame on you.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Wolf has another question. Actually, another question is: being not a common biological being, what will the purpose of the arms be, if it will even have them? So I guess some of these versions you've had have had arms. Do they serve a purpose, or are you leaning towards not having arms?
So the only reason why I would give it arms is if this thing needed them to feed, because the way that this thing operates, at least from a biological standpoint, is it runs around hunting its prey. Sort of, it's like a chase enemy. It just chases it until it eventually sort of falls into its lap. So, given that that's how it hunts, and given that it's nocturnal, during the day it's never seen. It obviously hibernates during the day, so it hides. So the only thing that its arms would really be useful for is for feeding on its prey once it's finally got it. And I would use that if it didn't have an elongated neck or enough mass to be able to balance to feed itself, using that particular method. Aside from that, I think it probably wouldn't need them. But that's what it would have them for, I would imagine.
There's a lot of world building and consideration into but I guess that is what makes a really memorable creature different from more generic design.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to consider, I guess. Something else that needs to be factored in as well is the animation requirements. So for something like this, obviously it would have like a specific way of moving. Because I've designed this after like a kangaroo, it's pretty. There's like a lot of reference for how that thing would be able to move. But if this were a little bit different, that would be a different story. So if this thing, if this thing were like a slow moving predator, it might have a very different setup in how its limbs are formed. So like at the moment, it's got these big whopper muscles up here and all these tendon work down here. So that's for long distance. If it were something that stalked, the musculature would be much more evened out. Like it would have like these bulky muscles down here, perhaps, and the musculature overall would probably be reduced, just because it wouldn't necessarily require that. But yeah. I think not quite. So yeah, so part of the like detailing process, I guess, is just adding noise, kind of like just little scribbles and things. Like up close, it just looks like mess. But once you hit a bit of a distance, you can see like with the head, like it starts to look a bit more interesting and a bit more intentional, I suppose.
Ooh, this is an interesting question. Birdie asks, question with the move outside to the ice and the snow, would Affray ever consider adding small flying enemies? And my aforementioned the thing, like the movie type on, or another stalker type enemy, more fit for the cold? The area seems eerie and would fit a stalker type enemy. I feel like half of that you have to be a little bit vague on, but I think the flying type enemy is an interesting question. Is that something that's ever been considered, or would that break the tactical immersion that's built for 5K?
It's definitely been considered. I don't think we've ever landed on a particular like solid. Yes, this would be perfect. This is going to work awesome in this particular area. Like we haven't had that moment for a flying enemy yet. So yeah, it's up in the air, I would say. But there's certainly no immediate plans for something like that at this stage.
I know there was a lot of spark. I don't know. Do you follow Destiny, the game?
A little bit.
I think that they're doing like a big expansion pack, or it's supposed to be a big deal because it's the end of the Light and Darkness saga, and people are excited because it's like the first new enemy faction they've added in years. And one of the big things they have in that enemy faction is they have little flying guys, and people are like, "Oh my god, we finally got flying enemies! Whoa, oh my god!"
Yeah, I know. It's like there's a lot of trickiness that comes into developing that, especially when it comes to spaces where you can move indoors and outdoors. Becomes a little bit tricky because um, the yeah, there's just a few complications in terms of the like getting the AI to recognize where it is. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting um, it's an interesting area to kind of explore, but I'm not sure if we're going to get to that bit um, with what we're currently working on. Maybe in future, of course.
Soloer asked, what made you decide that SCP-745 is a good fit for the game? Just to reiterate, none of these are going in the game necessarily. We are doing this as a design exercise to show you the wonderful people who support us and make this all possible, the ethics and ethos that goes into designing an SCP for 5K. So, like I said, if you want this one to go in, go talk to your billionaire or millionaire uncle, and then maybe we can talk. But for the purposes, this is just a design exercise, which I am personally really enjoying as someone who loves creature design.
Actually.
All right, Bertie. I'll do you. I saw that you messaged this earlier. For the flesh that hates, and the way Kyle could basically be the 40K emperor and go, "They shall be my finest horrors. This SCP that they give to me." Like I did what I could.
I reject. I reject the use of the emperor on this server. Just straight up. Yeah. I wasn't gonna say anything, but why, Bertie? Why?
You know, he's a popular thing in meme culture, and you know, just overly.
Yes. Yes.
I know you have history. Although we have here another wonderful guest, one of the executive producers on SCP-5K, Bowman Modine. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you. Sorry to butt my head in. Just the mention of 40K has a tendency of triggering me. I might as well have just brought up like Star Wars or something like that. But
no, don't bring up Star Wars.
So I have a question though, Kyle. You know, just out of curiosity, what would you imagine in this design? The kangaroo, for example, like exists on the plains of Australia, and bounces right to get pick up momentum. And I've watched plenty of documentary about the threat that kangaroos face, or that exhibit, right? Like I think I saw a guy parachuting once that got punched in the stomach or something by a kangaroo that like jumped up at him. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, I know the exact one.
Yeah, right. Where would you imagine these guys to have existed in the wild, as it were?
Yeah, so I think, oh gosh, hang on. I'll double check on the wiki whereabouts they're meant to come from, but from my understanding, it's kind of like desert areas. yeah, they live along a stretch of abandoned highway in New Mexico, apparently. So wide open spaces. The way they hunt is they move at extreme speed, and they sort of push lone drivers off the road, and then feed on the drivers themselves. So I would say that these things, anywhere where there is a large expanse, somewhere where they can hide during the day and then hunt at night. The space would need to be fairly clear, so probably grass plains or desert. Something that they can move at the speeds at which they do without having to worry about colliding with too many obstacles. But yeah, I'd say environment like that would probably suit these guys best. Actually, there we go. That can be the justification for the arms, is they got to punch people.
Like those super muscular kangaroos that kidnap dogs. I'm sure you've seen videos of those, where you just have this alpha kangaroo. It just like looks like it's hugging the dog, and then someone has to punch the kangaroo out to go save the dog.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's see if I can get this kind of tricky a bit. So they're meant to have like childlike hands at the end, which is
Ooh, this is an extra creepy detail. I'm very excited to see. Noah's question: are there any SCPs you won't add to the game for sure? Much as I hate to say it, there's probably thousands of SCPs.
yeah. There's quite a number of, I guess, how would I describe them? The more esoteric types. We've only got like a couple. I think that are planned, like things like Dave, because having too many of them becomes a little overkill. And then, of course, there are a lot of monster type ones that we just simply don't have the capacity to do. But yeah, as Isaac says, there's probably way more that can't make it in than what there are that can. At least in the capacity of like as the current SCPs that are in the game.
This is an interesting challenge. How do you approach like making like childlike hands? What defines childlike hands? Is it just sort of like, stubby fingers, or how do you kind of like nail that feature? Because like right now they feel kind of like alien toes.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because like childlike hands, they're just more chubbier. There's less bone to them, but also I think I'm actually struggling with this a bit because the way in which. Okay, wait. I have an idea. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll shoot back to like the emu kind of aesthetic. They're meant to have paws, so I'll give it some sort of kind of paw-like structure. But what I'll do is the actual hand print itself, like the footprint, will resemble it, because what we could do is the actual pad underneath could better resemble that sort of childlike element, but without having the fingers and such, because it would just be too delicate. I think you would stub your foot on one rock and your foot would be gone. So let's go for something that. Maybe.
M. Nikon at YouTube has an interesting suggestion. What if two of the fingers are in the middle of morphing together instead of a childlike hands?
Wait, sorry.
His suggestion is, what if two of the fingers are in the middle of morphing together instead of childlike hands? So maybe they would have like a finger that's like I don't know if that would work from a design standpoint.
Gotcha. I still think it would need a significant amount of padding to handle the impacts. Unless, of course, these things are significantly smaller. I suppose they wouldn't stand very tall, actually, which is quite a good point. So if we've got like the ground and we've got, like our vehicle. So like your headlights are only so high off the ground, it's like maybe a foot. And these things are mistaken for being headlights. So, maybe, oh no, American cars are bigger, so maybe 2 foot. Maybe they're, maybe like 2 foot tall. So I suppose childlike hands would be fine, actually. Yeah, it might be fine. I'll leave it as is for the moment, and I'll see if I have any ideas on how to approach it. But for the moment, just get some extra detail into these other parts.
So we do have a few suggested SCPs from the audience. I can make a poll, but I guess I was kind of curious to see how much more time you want to spend on this bad boy, since we are, knee deep in 745 land, and I definitely would love to have what you feel is like a completion before, beginning to figure out which will be the next one to be tackled.
All right. I'll tell you what, everyone, if you could put in your suggestions for the poll, and we'll do whatever hits, whichever creature you guys want to do, I'll hit that after this one. I'll try to finish this one up in the next 10 minutes or so.
All right.
So I can show you guys a little bit more of the process.
Yeah, definitely take your time. I just want to be considerate of. I do love to see this and see it considered. I have posted the ones that I've gotten suggested in both YouTube and Discord. If there's any other ones, or ones that you think would be better than those, please let me know.
So I'll show you guys a little bit of this. So this is what's called blocking. Usually what I'll do is I'll do it with a really bright color. And that way I can see exactly if I have missed any points. And I'll then just go around and clean that up, just like so. So this is after, of course, like the sketch and all of this is finished, which I'll just pretend it is. It's pretty much there anyway, so pretty good to go. I'll just clean it up so that we're not bleeding any points beyond where they should be. Yeah, like that.
So what is the sort of use of like blocking in the artistic process? Is it just sort of like putting colors to give you an idea of definition?
Okay, so the purpose of blocking is actually one of the first stages before rendering. So the reason why I do this is so that I can clip everything to this base layer. So like, for example, I've got that layer now. I've got this shape, this silhouette. I can also check the silhouette and make sure that it's, it's unique and different. This is kind of cool. It's kind of a little bit ambiguous. If you're an Australian, you're going to immediately think this is kind of kangaroo-like. If not, you might see this as kind of dinosaur-like. How this stalks in the game. So whether this is something that you would see in an area like in Outpost Axiom, this could be something that's actually just bolting through the forest, or this could be potentially something that's stuck inside an area like Area 12. If that is the case, this thing would be bolting down corridors and things. Perhaps it's slowly stalking about timidly, like it doesn't know where it is. It's a little bit scared. So these considerations go into more of the animation of the thing. But once we have that base, right, clipping mask. Then what I'd do is I'd actually I'd pick like a color. So I think this thing is meant to be really dark. it's like it hunts at night. So I'd usually start with like the darkest tones, and then I'd probably grab that color, bump it up a bit, change the value slightly. I would start to block in the various lighting. So I know for a fact that the head is going to glow. So that's really cool. I can use that to my advantage and use that as the light source. So I know that he's going to be casting light back on his body. So I just have to consider how this thing exists in 3D space, which is a really, really good skill to have if you work on these sort of things, is knowing how the thing is sort of structured, how it sits, and where that light is going to hit it, and where that's sort of casting. So I'll do a couple of these layers and then we should be right. Da-da. So the first few layers I'll go fairly heavy-handed, kind of added a bit to everything. And then I will condense that down a little bit more with the next layers. So that's pretty good, that'll do. That's some on there too. Yeah.
We did have a very interesting question from StepScreen. How do you decide what to add out of an SCP design from the actual article design-wise? So this is a really interesting, great philosophical thing. How strict do you take the articles when designing, and when do you feel like you can break or bend the design of the articles for either gameplay or design purposes? What is your sort of internal rule set that you go by?
So it's essentially the rule of thumb, right, is just be respectful. So if the article is described in a particular way, make sure you try and hit that point. So like, for example, this thing is bipedal. That's very clearly written. It's part of its the way in which it moves. It's part of its behavior. It actually has more than just a singular visual element to it. It's to do with its structure, the structure of it itself, and its behavior. So the points like that you would try and respect as much as possible. You would say, okay, no, I'm gonna leave that. It'll remain bipedal. And so yeah, when I jump onto the wiki, I'll just jot down every single visual element. So like if they've described it a particular way, I'll go, okay, cool. So it's described this way. This is what the thing is. And then from that, I'll look at, okay, well, what hasn't been considered there? So like, if this thing has, so it's described as being bipedal, but there's no mention of like what kind of texture the skin is like, right? So that's fair game. I can do what I want with that, provided that it makes sense. This thing does have the exception of being described as not being carbon-based, so I can assume that it would have some sort of silicate properties to its skin and most of its body as well. So yeah, there's different elements, I guess, that you have to kind of consider, and other ones that you can push the boundary a little bit. But yeah, making sure that you're being respectful of the source documentation is always a good port of call. So it sticks out way more, so I'll line that up a bit.
It's like this is a really this gets thrown about a lot in the current cultural landscape. What do you think is like a disrespectful design choice? Like what would you say, like if you really wanted to be disrespectful to the headlights, what do you think would be like twisting it so much to the point where it disregards the original creative intent of the article?
Okay. What I would do for that is, first and foremost, I wouldn't have the head glow. You would, anything that's key to its to what the thing is fundamentally described as. You would mess with if you wanted to be disrespectful in that sense. So I wouldn't make it bipedal. I wouldn't give it a glowing head. Probably wouldn't make it that fast either. Yeah, you can make, yeah, exactly, like in the chat. Give it no legs, make it slither, like, something like that.
Where it just doesn't do the things that you sort of associate with the creature, or that kind of made it famous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because like if it had like elements to it that weren't described, like if it was just this thing is fast, no one really has seen what it looks like, etc., then yeah, it's fine. You can really play with that, but it's best to make sure that you're just reading and understanding what the thing is, I guess.
And for all of our audiences, I have posted the poll. They are up now. I see 8 votes for the YouTube and 7 votes on the Discord. I know we got a lot more than that. I want to see all the people reflected. Get those votes in. Let your voices be heard. Right now, the Royals seem to be winning, but I don't feel like we have the full audience reflected. So please click that vote. Make your votes heard. Let's see who is going to come out. It seems like it's a neck-to-neck race between the Banana Dial and the Royals. I am eager to see him tackle either of those, but let your voices be heard. What will it be? Will he try and take a stab at trying to make the goofy banana monster serious? Or will Kyle bring an especially terrifying take on one of the most beloved SCPs, the Cannibal Royals? The choice is in your hands. Let democracy reign free. Get those votes in. I want to see those votes go up. And also, like the stream. Likes always help out. So the more likes, the better.
All right. So once I've hit a point like this, I might add an interesting sort of layer. So it's something that's really helpful for this kind of stuff is like, once you've got your base sort of lighting down, is you actually go in and just paint in extra shadows, which can really help to make things pop. Can really help to differentiate different sections from each other. And you can do the same with light as well. Just mess with your layer modes. So if I do something like this, just reduce that a bit. It just helps to make things pop a little more. If I go for the head now.
Soloer asks a really interesting question. What has been the hardest SCP to design as of yet?
The hardest one? Hardest SCP.
If it's one that has not been seen or you can't talk about it, then you can leave that out. But I guess out of all the SCPs that have been announced, which one has been the most difficult?
Honestly, I think maybe it would actually have to be 1262, because we've had a couple of different versions of it. And it's been tricky to settle on an exact final distinction of it. I think we're pretty much there now, but it was certainly a bit tricky at the start.
The door squid, I thought would be like, that looks like a really complex entity, especially with the animations.
Yeah. I mean, that one had a couple of different iterations that it went through. Definitely made it a little bit tricky to sort of settle on a particular design, because there's so many things you can do with it, you know. Like you could set that up as a creature that you know, as it currently is, you know, something that just crops up at the sorry. You can make something that just, you know, is an environmental hazard. You could make it something that's aggressive, something that you have to defeat, something that's part of a puzzle. Like there's so many different ways that we could have approached it, and it was tricky to kind of settle on a particular space to push it into. But I think that the key idea of it being an environmental hazard, sort of reigned supreme, and that's what ended up pushing it forward.
Tajat has an interesting question. Have you ever considered having the 1262 being a corrupting entity, meaning you could have zombies, dogs, etc., being controlled by the plant? Has that ever been something that came up in discussions when adapting 1262?
Yeah, I mean, there was all sorts of discussions around how we could incorporate that with other SCPs, and how you can combine it with other different instances to create different interactions. Because that's something that we've wanted to have for quite a long while, is have the SCPs not just interact with you as the player, but also interact with each other. So there was definitely a lot of discussion around how we could approach that. This up.
Oh my God, Sterling, who also is present in the. How did you do that so quickly? Sterling made a 3D model of your. Oh my God, that's amazing,
Dude. Dude, that's sick.
How did you do it? I guess you were just like a pro sculptor. Oh my God, I love the light.
Dude, it's cracked.
Oh man, it's really impressive that you like in like around an hour you've got like this almost you know, completed piece of artwork. Fantastic to like to watch you kind of go at it. For anyone, this is what Sterling's design looks like for anyone on the YouTube stream. Sterling made a fantastic. He's also one of the 3D artists who hopefully will join us for one of these sessions in the future. And he did a very quick 3D model of Kyle's design, which is super impressive. All right. So, is there anything else you want to add to this creature? I think we have a consensus on who the winner is in terms of votes.
All right. I'm just going to add this to it. If I can find the right layer mode, color burn. So it affects the darks rather than the lights. Drop it down to like 60 or so. Let's give it a little bit of texture. And the only other thing I'll do, absolute final thing, is I'll give this guy a little bit of a I'll give him a bit of an orange, I think. Oops. Yeah, kind of looks brown. Just a little bit of a different color in there. Cool. Okay. We'll say that.
Cue Final Fantasy cheering congratulation music, or I guess in a phrase case, the really cool evac soundtrack from SCP-5K. But very impressive. So, all right. So, you ready to tackle the one that won the vote?
Sure. Let's go.
So,
What do we got?
The combined vote from YouTube and Discord puts SCP 5031, the Royal Cannibals, at the highest margin. It has 50% on YouTube, and with 18 votes, that would give it at least 9 votes. And Discord, it was a little less popular, but still enough with the YouTube audience was able to push it in its favor. I'm sorry, Bananazilla, you didn't make the cut. I was kind of curious to see if Kyle could have made the Bananazilla frightening, but instead we've got the Royal Cannibals, so it's SCP-5031.
Right on. Okay. Let me just look it up real quick. Okay. Sweet. Awesome. Okay. So let's see what we got. We've got is non-sapient quasi-humanoid creature of unknown origin. Cool. So roughly humanoid. We've got so it stops existing when you observe it. Cool. It's a quantum creature. Abnormally small head. Small head, no neck.
So is the
3 branches from elbows. Sorry?
Oh, so just for my own curiosity, when you're looking, do you just like stick with the article, or do you look at like fan art to kind of like see, oh, this is what the community has decided is the interpretation of this creature? Which do you work at when you're kind of like building something from scratch?
I prefer to I like seeing what other people have done, but I like to see what I can come up with organically from the article first, just to see what kind of ideas bounce around from there. It's good to see what other people have done, so you make sure you're not like duplicating the same thing or coming up with a design that's too similar. But yeah, essentially, I like to sort of take a fresh take on it, and see what comes of it.
Well, I am very much looking forward to seeing it. Maybe you can make a Hamilton version, but I shouldn't try to influence you. This is your design process.
Also, yes, no worries. Just see. So, okay, cool. And levitates. Cool. Dun, dun, dun. Has no nutritional needs. Doesn't sleep. Incapable of expression or verbal communication. Okay. I'm going to take the assumption that this thing has no mouth. Cool. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Just checking to see if there's any additional things in the rest of the documents that might be pertinent. No, I think so. Okay. Oh wait, did I get the number right? 5031?
Let me check.
Is it 5037?
It's 5031, I believe.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. All right, sweet. All right, so we got that. All right, so let's consider this thing to be a is this thing aggressive? I'm not sure.
I think it is, because they're like famous for being like cannibals. Their idea is that like they're the evil royal family, so they're supposed to be kind of like
Okay.
Or did I get it wrong?
It's interesting. The document is
Oh,
so the file is under review.
all
so
right,
I guess it's a little bit up in the air.
I think I might have made a mistake. I thought, or maybe they did want 3-1. So let's just stick with it. For some reason, I thought apparently the Royal Cannibals is 3288. So just stick with what you got. That was what people voted on.
Gotcha. It's all right. I can jump to that one if people would like.
Because I think SCP-031 is the murder monster, which does also seem interesting. I will put in a little quick poll just to see if people want to because people did request the Royal Cannibals, but that was a wrong one for you.
Okay.
Cannibals, or stick with SCP-5031. When you get to the numbers, it can be very fives. All right, so we got the poll in Discord. We've got the poll and I'm going to ask it right here.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, cool. So it's essentially these guys are like kind of like sort of like vampires in a way. Like if you mix vampires with kind of like a Wendigo, I guess.
Wendigos have been making a resurgence in creature design.
Especially with like the Skinwalker concept. I think it's become so popular now that yeah.
They were not very popular. What was that movie that was produced by Guillermo del Toro, Horns? That was had a really cool Wendigo. Antlers. There you go. And that had a really good Wendigo design.
Yeah. All right. So I think I'll go about this in
okay. So the consensus on Discord is people want you to stick with 5031. Apparently, that's a very popular one. And yeah, all right. So 5031. Forget the aristocrats. We're not having aristocrats unless people demand it. Stick with 5031.
Stick with 5031.
Right. Yep, 5031.
Cool. All right then. Cool. All right. Let's see how we go. Okay. All right. So these things are roughly humanoid, which is cool. So, okay. So humanoid, small head, no neck. So it's kind of like an arched back, I suppose. Elongated torso. Torso is really long. Crescent blade pelvis. Which direction would that go in? Not sure, but if it's at the pelvis, maybe it goes back to front. Musculature is going to be interesting. It's got these arms that branch at the elbows into three distinct parts. Yeah, okay. I don't think it's really mentioned if they have a specific hand type, but we can explore that, I think. So something front on would be fairly easy, I think. It's kind of set up.
Just out of curiosity, are there any like creatures that you're sensing that you're flowing through you that are coming to mind? Weird, but it's funny. People are like, hell yeah, democracy. People love the spirit of Helldivers, of super democracy. And apparently the murder monster is a baby. People love this guy, apparently.
It's a baby, like it's in an actual baby?
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it kills babies. Maybe it stalks babies. But I'm not 100% familiar with the lore behind this bad boy. But he seems like he's a popular guy.
Interesting. Okay. If that's the case, his head's probably there. So, okay. Well, if it's baby-like, perhaps I could do some sort of interesting thing where I have the body kind of contorted into almost like a fetal position, which, if it's pelvis.
Oh, well, all right. So I've got an interesting bit of lore.
Crescent.
So apparently, it just had the mental capacity of an infant, learned quickly how to make food, sing, was taught how to communicate. So I don't know if this will help affect your design, but definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay. Cool. All right. I quite like this idea, actually. So if the crescent element, because it's attached to the pelvis and it's not like a tail, perhaps if it's attached at the pelvis point, this thing comes up. Maybe it almost goes full circle. Crescent moon. And maybe the tail is actually somewhat connected into the spine, so it creates almost like a spiral. That could be interesting. So not really a head as such, but a body section that comes down, connects into this blade. Almost like that. And then it's got its arms hanging out from the side, which have those three elements. Yeah, okay. I think something like that might be cool. So I'll draw him probably dead side on, so that actually makes a bit of sense. So let's see how we go. Connects into the back. Pelvis.
Someone was suggesting it should be like Gladys from Portal, but I don't know if that's a good suggestion or a bad suggestion.
Like Gladys from Portal. Like having it like upside down?
I guess maybe like maybe the sort of crescent moon shape she kind of has. Good question from Axo. What brushes do you use?
I use at the moment I'm using like the default round brush, just really small. I favor that one, and also I've got like this soft one. I suppose it's the default soft brush too. Those two are my favorites. Does anyone else here do art?
Any other artists in this stream? Let your voices be heard. What are your artistic comments? I am looking for them. Please share them.
Let's see.
Sterling is a cat, and then someone pointed to Sterling. And T-Jet says he is an artist. So if you have any art-focused questions as this crescent moon takes shape, please let us know. Sorry, just a little amateur level designer, environmental artist here. So I guess this is a good question. What do you think? What advice would you say for an amateur? Do you think it's just a good portfolio? Do you think it's just dedication and practice? How do you cross that threshold from going amateur to pro?
That's a good question, actually. I'm not sure if there's like a steadfast, this is exactly how you do it or not. Because like some people like have spent like a lot of time, in education. A lot of people have spent a lot of time self-teaching. Other people have worked lots of different jobs or already been working in the industry for a while. And I can't really say that there's a steadfast way to determine if you're if you're a pro or not. I guess it's just if you have the skill set more so than anything else. So it's like, for like creature design, for example, you need one of the key skills you need for that is a really strong understanding of like animal and human anatomy. The other thing is how to render materials, how to design things like that. But then if you're looking at like game specifics, it would be like, okay, you know how to do these things. So how do you then translate that and be able to work with, say, like an animator? Like how do you make sure that designs work functionally as well, and things like that. So I guess it just honestly depends on each case, in a way.
Hmm. And this is kind of an interesting follow-up question to that. For Kyle, what's your favorite medium to create art with outside of digital spaces? Personally, I like charcoal.
Hmm. I like to mess around with just grey lead, actually. Just simple graphite. Either, oh, sorry, actually, yeah, okay. So it's a tie between graphite, just standard grey lead pencils, or biros. Biros are a lot of fun.
Good old classic graphite pencils. Did you do a lot of doodling when you were in grade school?
Oh yeah, I did probably more than I should. I should have been paying attention a little bit more at points, but yeah.
Hey, look at where you are now, designing this crescent moon abomination. I like the head thing, kind of like going into the blade.
Yeah, it might be interesting. How to join 3 joints into one piece here. It's going to need to be an interesting structure, actually. It wouldn't be like an arm per se. It would have to be.
Oh, Axo is very
It'd be like
sad,
a wrist.
sad story. I'm a digital artist. I lost my Chromebook stylus, so I can't make any concept art on my school Chromebook. Um, what advice would you give to a digital artist who loses their stylus? Do they just have to buy a new one, or is there some sort of tool they can use to kind of imitate a stylus?
Uh, hmm. I mean, I don't know of anything that you could use as an alternative, but there's definitely cheap. You can definitely get cheap styluses. Alternatively, like, you could just draw with traditional media for the meantime until you can get a new one. Because if you like just the simple drawing skills are fairly transferable. Like, there's not much difference in the learning gap. It doesn't take too long to to get back up to scratch. So I would say stick to some traditional stuff until you've got until you can replace that. But, yeah. I mean, if you really wants to, you could attempt to learn how to do it all with a mouse, but that would be quite tricky.
Well, I guess this is kind of interesting. Would you say this could hypothetically, not that this is happening for real, serve as like a flying enemy in SCP 5K?
Maybe. I think perhaps at a fundamental level, this one might be a little bit too. It might be a little bit too out there for what we're looking for, but could be wrong. It might work. And what I mean by that is like the anatomy of this thing is so different. It's so alien that perhaps it would need to be grounded in some sense.
To kind of like make sense in the more grounded like 5K universe.
Yeah. So like, for example, like how you could probably do that, right, is this thing might be something that like it could be like some sort of almost like zombie-like enemy, something that drags itself along the ground. The additional limbs could just be like small, almost cancerous growths. Whereas the like the crescent thing, that could be something maybe rather than being something like this, it could be like a let's say that it's got okay, yeah, let's say there's some sort of medical device, maybe that's some sort of anchor. So it might have been bolted into its spine. And so rather than being a crescent blade per se, it's like an actual, like maybe like a mechanical kind of piece, like some sort of key that locks into some sort of device. I might have holes and various divots and things and different things, but it's like maybe bolted into its spine where the pelvis would normally be. And then you could have like maybe there's a section here where it's like plastic. Plastic comes up and is sealing like a lot of the raw flesh, provided that this thing is like maybe it's healed. So it could be like this is actual just like skin and stuff behind here, but it's to keep it sterile. It's all like sutured up and stuff. So maybe there's something like that that would work a little bit better. But yeah, for something like this that's so different in anatomy to what currently exists, I would say something like that would be probably the best way to go.
More in line, but here you're just trying to like design something that's like
playing around.
Playing around and having more fun, a little less bound by the rules of 5K. Because it is interesting to see you tackle something that like I assume that those initial ones you picked were kind of like monster or creatures that felt like they could fit in 5K. Where now you are at the mercy of the power of democracy, super democracy, as the noble hell divers. Of a Frey Interactive of the Frey Interactive community are here to guide your hand.
Yeah, just mucking around. The ones earlier, they're more sort of in line. But yeah, this one a little bit more different. So we'll see where he lands. I do like this idea of like the neck connecting there. That's kind of interesting. So maybe this thing like sort of rolls if it were to, cease levitating.
You know, also kind of reminds me of, it kind of feels like a Bayonetta monster, if you've ever played like any of those games.
I don't think I have. I'm very uncultured when it comes to a lot of popular games.
Well, that's more of like a niche game.
Still building up my repertoire.
Oh, What games are you playing in your spare time, Mr. Game Art Designer?
So I have recently finished Death Stranding. So I've recently moved on to what's it called? Cyberpunk. I didn't play that when it was a big craze. So getting into that, and also. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say now's the best time to play it because all the DLC's out and it's been patched to like what it should have been. So you're never too late for Cyberpunk. You arrive just when you mean to.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I guess I missed a lot of the game breaking bugs, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it seems pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it.
Death Plan has an interesting.
What about the?
Oh, sorry, were you say?
Yeah.
Death Plan has a question.
I was just gonna say.
Finish your thought, and then I'll get you the question.
I'm so sorry. The lag is real. I was just gonna ask like what you or members of the community are playing at the moment too.
That is a great question. Members of well, let me give you this question, and then we'll get into what people are playing. How do you know how the creature's movement would be like with just information? Do you try to look at anything with similar features? So, yeah, how would like this creature that should not exist and goes against the laws of causality and reality, what would you do to base movement for it?
So something like this, I'll just look at, just with my initial sketch, okay, this thing is rounded. I know that it levitates, but if it were to not, how rigid is this structure? It's got these arms, 3 of them. So I could imagine something like this rolling, quite simply. These arms could be used like one at a time, like instead like 1, 2, 3 to sort of propel it forwards. So like grabbing at the ground, pulling itself forwards, stuff like that. So it's just looking at the shapes and what kind of things I've seen that move in those sorts of ways. It's kind of more simple stuff like that.
So that's your clue. As for games, Tadget's been SCP 5K putting in the hours. Happy to hear it. Just got in a 5K sesh. Oh, you guys are so sweet. I love the love for 5K. But we also have Destiny 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. I really need to play Baldur's Gate 3. Def Plan says, but I play RTS games. Good on you. RTS games are a genre that has not received a lot of love in this era, so it's good to hear that you're keeping the dream alive. For Charmin says War Thunder at this very moment. Glad to see that you're able to enjoy the stream while enjoying your War Thunder. That is the way to go. Grinding games, that is the greatest pleasure in life. You got a stream in one hand and you're grinding some game in the other. I totally get that. I think grinding games is a whole genre. It's one of my guilty pleasures. I used to, I kind of like falling a little off, but I used to play a lot of Hearthstone. That was kind of my favorite grinding game. SCP Containment Breach Ultimate Edition and Yomi Hustle. I've never heard of Yomi Hustle, and that's one thing I need to work on is getting us a community game night where we play SCP Containment Breach. So look for that. Project Zomboid. So a lot of great, interesting game suggestions. I'm glad to hear you guys, of course, are putting in your 5K time. And I look forward to when you can play Josie, and that's available. I'm playing a lot of Vintage Story. I don't know what that is. I'm going to assume that's like an RPG. I could be wrong. But yeah, that is great to hear all these games. Will there be an SCP 5K event with the devs? Yes, I will figure that out. That will have to happen. Personally, I want to do a players versus devs team deathmatch. See if we can make that happen. But one thing that makes it a little difficult is that like all the devs live on different continents. So it can be a little difficult to corral them since they all exist in so many different time zones. It's kind of like, hands across the world. Oh my God, love of SCP and communities coming together. But sometimes it can make it a little bit of a logistical nightmare. But yes, that needs to happen at some point. Maybe after the update is available, I'll see if I can figure out a way to do it. Maybe we could do a speed run where it's like 2 devs team up with 2 players from the community, and we'll see who can do it the fastest. That would be fun. Or maybe just a team deathmatch.
That'd be cool.
Interesting. Solar.
Do you reckon?
Oops. Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, do you reckon we could run maybe multiple for the different time zones? Maybe.
Multiple events?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. We could do like maybe different ones. Have like 3 or 4 events over the course of a weekend with different devs coming in. That I think that would be potentially possible to accommodate. Build a whole SCP across the world marathon, and then the theme would be like different devs in different time zones would be that might be really fun. Fun little theme. But that's one thing. Need a slightly more cohesive deathmatch lobby. It does make it a little difficult because, like, sometimes the people you don't want to get in. But I'm sure. Ooh, I love the bone neck that you're creating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Should be interesting. Because I imagine, like, even like from a sound design point of view too, like maybe this would be really cool to hear it kind of rolling down, like a stretch of hallway. It's just like dead silent, and then you just hear this horrible clacking of these spinal vertebrae just hitting the ground as it's rolling.
So is
something like that might be interesting.
Well, that is really because I thought this bad boy is supposed to float.
Yes, but if he also, because like that's the thing, right? You need to consider like other modes that this thing might be able to move around with. So if this thing, because like, okay, let's say for example this thing, let's say you've ticked it off, and it's like an enemy that you, let's say it's an optional enemy, so it's something that you don't necessarily need to deal with. You could ignore it and it would ignore you, but if you engaged with it, shot at it for example, perhaps that then activates it, and then it will hunt you down. So maybe it floats around after you, trying to swipe at you, grab you, ram into you, but then let's say you try to escape by going through a vent. Maybe this thing can follow you through the vent.
Ooh.
And it can start rolling through there. Like different, recontextualizing how this thing would function is an interesting way to kind of break away from the standard perception and create something that's a little bit more unique. And given that I'm taking this into like more of a horror standpoint, it's probably a good idea to have something like that, because then it's something that the players won't expect. It's almost it'd be quite a bit of a shock and probably a scare, especially now that you've jumped into a confined space and this thing is still pursuing you. It's there's a few different interesting ways that you can approach it. There's really no limit to it, I guess.
Lot of creativity. That I guess that is one of the beauties of having a design like this that is so open-ended, is that you have the freedom to kind of be very creative in how it functions in a gameplay perspective, and that you can adjust it however you feel like.
Exactly.
Chajat says VR capability, even if it's something in the super future, would make this game probably #1 bestseller. Not even gonna lie. I think some people have developed VR mods for SCP-5K. I've seen some videos on Twitter, which I think are really cool and impressive. I think considering all the backlist, that's like a very low on the priority list. But I'm not going to say it wouldn't be cool, that it wouldn't be awesome.
Oh yeah, I agree. It would be sick.
Oh, I have no idea, though, how many people actually own VR headsets. I feel like one of the big problems with VR is that it has not been super broadly adopted, and I feel like that's kind of like what's held VR back.
Yeah, it's still very expensive, like in the grand scheme of things. And the games are well, the games are not too bad. They're still expensive, but it's not kind of groundbreaking. But the hardware itself is where it sort of crunches. And because like I've got a headset, but it's not the most high end thing.
Do you feel?
Yeah, it's definitely. I guess the variety of games too, like, is the other thing, because you're kind of limited. There's not as many games. They're slowly growing, but then you have like different consoles. So like whether they're cross-platform and they work on all VR consoles, or whether they just work on some. And then of course there's the desire to play games with high fidelity. So then you need to like plug in, which limits your movement and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pros and cons that I think weigh into it, as to why it's not as widespread as it should, well, as it could be, you know.
Yeah, VR does feel like it never quite got like that, like, jolt of attraction, like motion gaming or like a music gaming had a few years ago. While VR never quite had that kind of wide adoption. I think that's a big problem. Is like you've got so many different versions of it that are, you got the PlayStation, you got the headset, you've got the Oculus Quest, you got so many different versions that it makes it difficult for the average consumer to keep up. So it feels like it's just kind of like this huge novelty, and it also doesn't help that, like, with the console, you can watch someone play it. You can kind of like interact with it in a couch way, or but you can't with a VR headset, right?
It can be tricky too, because like mobility too. Like if you don't have the space to be able to use it, or say you want to play a game for several hours, but standing there for several hours is it can start to take a bit of a toll. And again, like the headsets can be quite heavy as well, so and uncomfortable. So it just there's a few things about it.
Although when you put on your headset, do you ever feel like you're entering Ready Player One verse?
Sometimes. Depends how long I've not gone playing it.
Although, honestly, at this point, I think Fortnite is going to become Ready Player One with how many characters they're putting in. I just think it's the weirdest thing when they have like characters like from like Naruto or Avatar: The Last Airbender, characters who don't use guns, and then you just see like, oh yeah, here's Ang Ang, the pacifist airbender, and now he's got a MK machine gun and a sniper rifle. I just find it like so weird to see the gameplay with some of those skins.
Yeah, I guess it's part of their sort of it's part of the novelty though, right? It's part of that sort of meme culture.
True.
You can do whatever with sort of whoever. So yeah, if you want to see like the pacifist Ang doing obscene 360 no scopes and stuff, then yeah, you certainly can.
There is value to that. I have a question for, I guess, both of you. The development of new monsters, does the part of the team that creates the story tell Kyle and the other designers what they want? How many requirements do the designers get? Do you have story requirements before the design process, or do you have to redesign after for the story? So, this is a good chicken came from the egg. What happens first? Do you get like your marching orders? We're putting in SCP, like the classic chicken monster. We're doing it, and it has to do this, this, and this. Or do you get to define, oh, I think it'd be really cool if it does this? What is that process in terms of like define designs?
Yeah, so it kind of depends a little bit because, like, we get how do I describe some things that we have creatures for? We get like a solid list of this is exactly how we want this thing to behave. Other points, it's less. It's more of a generalized idea. So, for example, like the Size creatures, the original briefs for them were quite open for what we were kind of going for. Whereas briefs for other SCPs are a lot more strict. And it's like, no, this is exactly what this thing is going to be operating as. This is how it's going to function in the game. This is what the interaction is supposed to be. And we go with that. But that said, it's not always the case because sometimes we do revisit creatures and go, okay, how can we adjust this? How can we recontextualize it or use it in a space that's more favorable? It honestly depends, but the story's been in a bit of flux. It's pretty solid now, but there has been some changes to it, so that has shifted where things would appear and what interactions you would have with those things. But yeah, essentially, it's just it kind of depends, I suppose.
Here is a good question. Genesis asks, how many SCPs will you making this stream? I guess it all depends on two factors. I need to go to sleep. I mean, I'm good, but it all depends on Kyle's availability, how he's feeling, and in like 2 hours I have a heart out because I got to go to sleep. But we'll see. Maybe like if I had to guess from time, maybe one or two more. Or do you think that's too ambitious?
I reckon after this one, I could probably do one more.
Okay.
And then I'll have to nick off and get back to work.
Yeah, that is true. We are Kyle is taking time out of his very valuable time and schedule for this. So he does have to get back to real work versus imaginary impossible work. So there you go. We could probably do one more after this. As much as I would love to do 8 hours of designing monsters, Kyle does. This is technically a work day for him, and he does have work that he has to do to make sure that SCP-5K continues to march towards the 1.0 release.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll grab this guy. He's probably about as good as he'll get. Oh, wait. Get rid of that.
So is there any color that you would like to add?
Yeah, so I don't think he's got a description for his color, but I think a lot of the fan art has gone for like a purplish tone. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Any suggestions for color? What do you want him to look like? Is Kyle just going to do purple, or is there something you'd like to see? Let him know now. Now is your chance to make your time heard. You can let it. Solar wants purple. Does anyone else want to try something that is not purple? Because I know that is the classic design that he usually appears at. Dark grayish purple is another suggestion. Gray,
Yeah.
And then we also have grayish purple, purple white.
All right, I'll give it a crack. We'll go for some. Sounds like you guys want some muted purples and grays and stuff, so we'll go with that.
And while Kyle is putting on the finishing touches of this bad boy, please suggest some more SCPs that you would like. I will do another poll. Is there another SCP? Do you want to see the Royals? Do you want to see the Banana Monster? Give me 2 or 3 SCPs so I can suggest it. I'm kind of like rooting for the Banana Monster. I want to see, can Kyle make something that's kind of ridiculous into something fearful and frightening? Is that possible? But only you will be able to determine.
Okay.
All right, I have the banana monsters in the list, and then SCP 939. Any other suggestions? Let democracy reign supreme. I want to hear your votes. I want to hear your what your thoughts are. SCP 428, the crowd. I will add that to the list. One more SCP. And I will also add SCP 93. Well, let me see what that one looks like.
Another good one is I forget the number, but is the acid snail. Don't think that one's been redesigned before.
075. All right. I will throw it in there since that is, you know, you deserve a pick. Ooh, that is a nice hue of purple, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. All right, this guy's got like a sharp blade, I believe. So, let's say that light is going to. It's pretty much coming from above, so we'll stick with that.
By any chance, will the blade be like made more of like a, I don't know, like a bone color, so the blade looks like it's a bone that's coming out of its body, or
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'll adjust the colors right at the end.
All right, the poll is live in Discord. I hope the banana wins. I'm going to post it in YouTube soon.
Cute. Da, 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 da.
All right, the poll is live on YouTube, so check it out. Make your voice whole. Let your voice be heard. I cannot wait to see who wins. Oh my God, Banana is crushing it on Discord. I got 18 people here. I want to see 18 votes. Will Banana win? Will the crowd win? What is going to happen? Who will win in this rumble of SCP monsters? In 2 seconds, I'm just going to get myself a glass of water. I always make the mistake of not getting a glass of water.
All right. Wow. Good. Let's block out this. Depending on the complexity of the creature, sometimes the blocking process can take quite some time. Because if you have, for example, lots of overlapping elements like this, the more overlapping stuff, the more you have to block that out so you're not just painting over stuff that you've already kind of worked on, which can be a little bit annoying.
Oh my God. SCP, the Banana Monster, is pulling ahead on YouTube, but 939 is coming up strong, but it is still the king on Discord. There are 8 votes. Oh my God, I love the suspense.
See, both are good choices. Unless that does nothing.
So since you work with a lot of bony structures, what do you think is the best way to kind of like get a good bone coloration?
So, hang on a second. Why is this?
Oh my God! It is vicious.
So to get.
Oops, sorry.
No, you're right. You're right.
I was gonna say it is vicious on YouTube. 939 is 50% of the vote of 14 votes, but it is still dominating on Discord. What are you people going to choose? I don't know. The banana one. Will you vote more on Discord for the banana? Will the banana triumph? I will try and do a total of the votes so we can have a fair assessment of which one is the true winner. Because super democracy must prevail against all odds.
I am so confused. My layers are not working as they're supposed to be.
Oh no, having an issue with Illustrator or Adobe? Yeah, you're working in Illustrator, right, or Photoshop?
Nah, this is Photoshop. I actually don't know what's happening with this one. Cause like, what? Why?
Oh no! Are you at the curse of the Adobe? Some setting or loop was a hit that you didn't expect it to do, and it's not doing exactly what you thought.
Wait, let me see if I can fix it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with that layer. It's so as you asked before, how do I get a good bone color? That is a very good question. So something that you can do with fairly good, it's kind of like a cream color. It's kind of like skin color if you're white, but you kind of mix that with grays and you mix it with different kind of desaturated colors, and you can kind of push it to be the sort of the, I guess you can push it towards the hues that you would expect from a bony kind of protrusion, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It just depends entirely. Yeah, there we go. It depends entirely on what you're after with it.
Very cool. If only we could drag in Pfeiffer here to see the sound design. I think
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think you'd have a field day for this, making this bad boy.
Oh yeah. All right, let's see. This one? Yeah.
Ooh, that's a nice shade of white.
I'll see how that goes.
Maybe, I don't know if I'd be able to pull this off, but it would be really fun to have like a SCP 5K creature game design jam where it's like a multi-part stream where we'd have you design it for the first part, then we'd have someone bring in Pfeiffer to do the sound design for it, and then we'd have one of our Dean or Samir do a 3D model. We had an interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We had an interesting comment. Someone said it reminds them of the droideka from Star Wars.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's kind of similar actually. Yeah, I do see that.
If only you could add some chain guns or blasters.
Yeah. All right. That one, I believe.
All right. So you think that one's good to go to add and ready to work on, ready for the final SCP of the evening?
Yep.
All right. So it was a tense battle, but it looks like SCP-2761 is the winner. It was a clear winner on Discord. And while 939 was a little bit more popular on YouTube, the combined total of Discord and YouTube would put it at like around 13 or 15 votes, making it the winner. So let us move on and see what the your version of the banana monster looks like.
The banana monster. Okay.
SCP-2761. This is probably your most challenging design. Can you make a serious version of a goofy, gaggy joke monster?
Okay. A large bipedal alligator
Oh my
Similar to a
God!
bull shark.
How does Sterling pump these out so quickly? Take a look at this awesome 3D model design of your version of the SCP-3031. Really, really freaking
That's
cool.
awesome, man. That's fantastic.
That is, oh God, Samir, when you're out of those classes, we have to get you on one of these events. Or why might say Sterling? Sterling. My apologies, awesome. Sterling. God dang it! My apologies. I got the two S names confused. But yes, Sterling. We need to get you in here.
Cool. Okay. All right. So, let's see. What if we do this one? Dude is so he's bipedal. He's like an alligator. He's got head of a bull shark. Easy. But this guy changes, doesn't he? It has a flexible frill that importantly can cover its face.
Oh, so it's kind of like what's that iconic iconic lizard from Australia, the frilled neck lizard?
Yeah. Except the frill on the frill neck lizard folds backwards. So this one's going to have to fold forward, which is interesting. Okay.
Mech, the one that was like driven by 3 people, I thought that one was really cool. That was a really awesome creation. I just kind of love the lore from it. So that would be mine.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay.
Oh, also, someone asked earlier, I forgot to ask this.
Okay.
When you were designing the Fray version of SCP-173 or 173B, what was the kind of design philosophy you had for that when approaching it, and sort of to like give the Fray version of one of the most iconic SCPs?
Oh right, that one wasn't me. That was before I joined as the art director. So that one, I believe, was made 2018, I think. And that was by Bathroom Tile, who is a very, very talented artist. But yeah, I'm to be completely honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what what his thought process was with that. So I don't feel super confident talking about the design choices behind that because, of course, I don't know them. But it is a pretty awesome design. It works really well, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I did see some of his early concepts for it. He was potentially going to take it in a couple of different directions. One of which was more sort of bulky and sort of bulbous. Other variants had different arm positions and different numbers of arms as well. And some versions even didn't have any arms at all, which was, I guess, sort of really playing into the anomalous nature of how does this thing actually crack your neck, which is kind of cool.
Oh, good insight to at least learn the creator of the Fray version. But I'm excited to see what you do with this banana monster.
Okay, so Nana Monster. So this thing is bipedal, but it has a hunchback. So it's doubled over, Piscine features, yellow skin, flexible frill, bull shark head. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, let's get this crack. Oops. Oops. Wrong keyboard. Let's go 5. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and give him some. Start with maybe the legs. No, adjust these as needed, I guess.
In the back of my head, I keep on having the Raffi song, you know, ring, 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 banana phone, do 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 do, ring, 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 banana phone. I don't know if you remember that classic from your childhood.
I think so, yeah. Give him a little side. Claw that foot. This thing. Punched. Give him a long tail. Because why not? You can be a long banana. Kind of make it flat as well, so that he's sort of still got some reference to that aquatic.
Here is a little bit of a controversial question from Axo in the YouTube chat. Can AI images help with concept art? I know Afray has a strict no AI policy, but I guess what is your opinion? Do you think it's not worth using? Is it too soulless? Is it just too lazy? What do you think in terms of concepting?
So I personally don't use it. I don't. Yeah, okay. So in its current state, I don't condone it because all of the data sets that are currently available are trained on stolen data. So even if, it was standardized, I still wouldn't do it. I think it's much better because, like, the way that an AI model works, right, is it's taking an obscene swath of data and it's approximating what percentage of combining that data together you're sort of after. So although it can produce a series of images that are sort of like a mix of what you're kind of looking for, it's still too unpredictable to be able to get something that's more sort of natural, I guess. Like, for example, if I'm looking for a particular pose or something, if I'm looking for a particular threshold in which I want something combined, it's not very useful in that sense. And it also kind of takes the fun out of it, because part of the reason for being like an artist, is to do the art. Like, we find it fun, we find it enjoyable. And it's where the human creativity comes from. You're pulling together different sources of information and you're combining them and creating, coming across little discoveries or making jumps in how you approach different things. And so through that process, you end up coming up with something or creating something that's entirely unique. Whereas if you offload that entire process to an AI to come up with that idea for you, then you don't actually get to experience that process. And so at a fundamental level, if you were to continue doing that, if you were to do it, you would eventually lose the ability to put together concepts like this, like I've been putting together for you today, because you would be consistently offloading that to something else to do it for you. So, in my personal opinion, I think it's not very useful at all, but other people may disagree.
There you go, laying the smackdown on AI. It is lazy. It is taking away from people's stuff. There you have it. Oh, I guess I'm gonna put on my tech bro pants, my Mark Zuckerberg, and channel it. Well, don't artists just iterate on stuff that's been done before? So how is it wrong from AI, which sampling things when the artistic process is built upon sampling of others' work that influences people?
It's different because of the way in which it's done, right? Because if I take, say, an image here, a piece of text here, a video from over here, and I'm combining different elements, I'm not just mixing them all randomly and producing a standardized variation of what all these things together are. Right? I'm not just drawing from this and doing so with soulless intent, because there is no intent from an AI. If I'm consciously creating something and deliberately choosing elements of inspiration and going, okay, I think this could work here, there's a justification for that. Whereas an AI can't do that. It goes, okay, you've asked for this. This is this, but also so is this 50 million images and things from this database. So I believe that that's what this is. Okay, I'm going to slap that in and just combine it at random with other elements. So what's missing there is the intent and the actual, I guess, the creative part of the creative process. You know, the actual part that's involved in condensing and choosing which parts go to create that final thing. But that isn't to say that you couldn't come up with something with AI that would work for what you're after. But then you do hit that point. Okay, well, does it work in game design, for example? Not really, because you have to be able to iterate. You have to be able to adjust according to very specific parameters. Because, like, for example, with this guy, if I've produced this guy and we've gone, okay, cool, awesome. However, the mechanics of this thing, we can't actually do like the frill neck thing. So that needs to be axed from this design, but the rest of it's perfect. Now I wouldn't be able to do that. And even if it could, you know, it's not going to be able to replace that with something else or do so in a way that has an intention, an intentional way of doing it in a way that makes sense and that conforms to what the brief or the studio wants. So that's where the difference lies. But that said,
there you have it. Real people draw, losers use AI. I couldn't come up with a good rhyme, but you get the idea. Artists rule, AI drools. Yeah.
okay, so this thing has like a bull shark head, which is interesting. I wonder if it has eyes. Does anyone know if this thing is written to have eyes, or if it's just another kind of blind creature?
It's funny. Like a lot of the interpretations I'm seeing give it eyes, but I don't know if the article specifies it as eyes. But it is funny that like we got not one but like two kind of like dinosaur-esque creatures with the first one 754, and now we've got the dinosaur, so we've got like a little bit of a theming.
Yeah, they're all kind of got that same aesthetic to them, or base shape, should I say. Okay. Ta- All right. Musculature. We're going to be the same as before.
What about fruit musculature?
Yeah, fruit musculature. Let's see. Okay. All right. So this thing has this petal-like thing over the top of it. So I'm going to take some liberties here and make it kind of a little mangled at the ends, kind of like the tips of the bananas. Let's see where that lands us.
Is there any way to make it give it like a human-like banana skin, or is that like too much of an oxymoron?
Human-like banana skin. Do you mean like actual skin?
Well, like I guess banana peel that has like the feel and texture of like human skin. But I could just be like talking dumb.
I could give it a crack.
You know, I know the thing that like talented artists such
Render
as
it in the same way.
talented artists such as yourself hate the most is when you've got a client who's like, you know, keeps on throwing out suggestions and doesn't know what they want, and then it's just like, you know, give me something that I like.
No, it's okay. It's you know, it's fun drawing things, and if there's other ways to go about it, that's always cool. It's not a negative thing. It can get annoying if you're going through like maybe 30 iterations of something, then you're like, okay, should have landed on it by now. But that's all right.
I'm just what you call it, throwing out things so it can like feel distinct from the rather goofy forms it takes. Because I think it's funny, you know. There's like horrifying SCPs, there's cool monster SCPs, and then there's just goofy joke SCPs. And I think this is like, you know, on that scale, this is like between cool monster and horror. So I'm kind of curious to see if it's possible to have a cool horror version of something that's pretty goofy.
I think so.
Oh, we do have a clarification. Okay. It says the Amazing Ulysses says SCP-2761 has eyes inside. So take that suggestion what you will.
Eyes inside. Okay. I'm gonna do something I've done on a couple of other designs before that's a bit interesting. Eyes inside. All right. So a nice, neat way to kind of add a little bit of oddness or sort of grossness, I guess, to some of these things is to add this kind of stringy elements. Which kind of works with banana skin, actually.
Oh, that
it's
is
kind of fibrous.
Yeah, that is like the fibrous hairs. That is an element I have not seen anyone else do in any of their designs.
Yeah, might be cool. Okay.
Zinthu the Sergol has an interesting comment on YouTube. He says, I think using AI is great in many aspects, but trying to be an artist and sell those pictures, naming yourself a professional artist, is lame. AI can help in many works, but that's lame.
I do agree. There's a lot of industries in which the tech could be extremely useful. Like a really good example, right, is at the moment they're using AI to make you know, data sets or algorithms that can source different images. But you could use that same tech for detecting cancer cells in patients, or spotting pests in crops. You could use it for really, really good stuff, but it's just being used, I think, in an industry where it's not needed, and it's not being used appropriately.
It kind of reminds me.
But
There's
yeah.
this kind of infamous guy on Twitter who's a YouTuber. I won't give his name, but he's like constantly showing off his like AI drawings. It's like AI is so amazing; it can enhance the work like never before. And it's like all this kind of like terrible art that looks like weird anime girls, and like, look, I made my wife into Supergirl. She has her effervescent glow, but it just kind of looks not great. It's like not the kind of thing to brag about.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
I don't know.
So someone
It's got its own style.
I
Sorry,
don't.
as you're saying.
Some people made some very good guesses, so I won't elaborate further. But maybe I should have been a little bit more cryptic in my description of the person. But I thought they were not the evangelist that AI really needed to sell it as a tool versus yeah, the accent did kind of give it away. And some of the AI stuff is fun to play around with for people like me who are not like talented, but I would never like, bring my stupid abominations I make in AI for funsies. It's like, oh my God, this is an incredible, amazing thing. Like, there's this one AI program called Suno AI, which like lets you make songs. So I did like a little song for my sister to celebrate her birthday, which was pretty well done. And I also made a Pokemon style rap for SCPs. And part of me was like, oh my God, I gotta I gotta put this out on social. And then the other part is me, no, I can't. The Fray team would want to kill me. And plus the rap was kind of cringe, in all honesty. It was cringe in a funny way, but it was not something that I think
it's no, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's a tricky path to navigate, I think, because there are some like data sets and things that are clean, but the problem is that a lot of those data sets end up getting tainted very, very quickly, because they train on other images that are either AI generated or other things like that. But I think the whole craze of it is starting to kind of die off, because we've hit a point where all of the I guess the marketable side of it, like the stocks and the worth, and the value of these companies is starting to drop quite significantly. So I think just like the NFT hype, AI hype is starting to reach its end.
Good prediction. But, well, the real thing will be if that OpenAI Suno thing that they've been hyping up actually is like something they release to the public and let people play with, and if it's as good as it promises to be, well, my guess is it's probably not as powerful as you'd think it would be. But you could be right. It could be like although God, every time I'm on like my mobile phone, I always get like all these weird AI ads for these terrible games, like Mr. Beast wants to give you $900 for playing this game. Or you just have this image of like a sexy mushroom woman who's like, play this game now, and you could tell it's like used with like one of those AI animator things. So I guess someone out there is getting a use for it. But will AI ever be able to replace the wonders of Gamer Joker? By any chance, have you ever heard of Gamer Joker?
No, what's Gamer Joker?
So, like, I every now and then, what's really fun is to browse the wonderful, weird world of mobile game ads, since they just have these, like, really, like, they exist in this alternate universe where, like, playing these, like, mobile gacha games is, like, the coolest thing in the world. So, you know, there'll be, like, a guy, and it's like, you know, oh my God, how do I get so much power? Oh, yeah, and then the woman will hop in, well, I have, Jacqueline, and she has 5 million battle power. Well, I have Star Foxy, and she has 12 million battle power. And then the girl will go with the guy who was like the, you know, was the best in this game. So there's this one thing where it was like they had a guy dressed up as the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, but he was doing the Heath Ledger Joker, and he says, you know, I play figure fantasy, and I'm the best figure fantasy player, and I have. And then he, you know, lists off the names of the anime characters, and then you know, a hot girl comes in. Well, that's not compared to our game, where if you get 5 billion summons by signing up now, then you'll have 2 billion battle power. And then Gamer Joker's like, no, you can't beat me in figure fantasy. It's a very strange, bizarre world of gaming that I guess is very lucrative because they buy these and manufacture these really bizarre ads.
Far out. There you go. Well, there definitely seems to be a market there for it. So
I guess people just can't get enough of those gacha games. It's maybe that's what Afraid needs to do. Is just like a weird fantasy.
Yeah, I suppose it's because they'd be quite addictive, you know.
Yeah,
the sort of gambling aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the, you know, it's like a slot machine, and then there's the gambling aspect of it, and people enjoy that when you combine, you know, sexy anime girls, gambling, and colors. Oh God, that would be a hilarious April Fool's joke to like do one of those ads with like really terrible acting, but it's for like SCP-5K. There's a really funny one where it's like, you know, this woman's like trying to hide out all the men she's been cheating with. And then, you know, the guy starts talking about the mobile game. And he says, I have, you know, 5,000 battle power in my Farmville. And then the guy says, oh my God, that's so cool. And then they all come out and start talking about the game and ignoring the fact that, you know, the girlfriend was cheating on him. It's a very, very strange logic. Archerman says a friend of mine's blown $1,000 on them, and it's closer to $1,240. That's yeah, that's that's an amazing amount to spend on gacha games.
That's crazy. It's interesting. I don't know. I have worked on like worked for a mobile studio, which was interesting.
What kind of game was it? I don't know if you have an NDA or how much you can tell us.
It was just it was like a soccer game. It was not the most exciting thing. It was cyberpunk related, which was kind of cool. But yeah, essentially the sort of, I guess, the key factor or the most important thing to consider, at least with like the design of things there, was A, making things cute, and B, making things really brightly colored. So you're definitely on the money with that in regards to the gacha stuff.
Did you make was it like an anime character design, or was it like kind of like more American cyberpunk?
It was kind of like chibi stuff, so it was kind of a mix, I guess.
So, all right, so it was like cutesy art. Was it like anime chibi art, or just like general super deformed?
It was kind of like a mix. It was not proper anime, but it was an odd style. It was very tricky to consolidate it sometimes.
So, and you have been in the belly of the beast. What insights can you give us into this strange mobile game world?
It is a very interesting industry. It's got a lot of there's a lot of money that's thrown around, a lot of hype, and a lot of small startups. Surprisingly, it hasn't really hit the West as hard as what I think it has. It's way more popular in more Asian countries, but yeah, it's not too bad.
Was the mobile game fun that you worked on, or was it kind of like one of those? Like the one thing I hate about those gotcha games is that they give you the illusion that like you're playing an RPG, but in reality, it's just like it has the window dressing to appear like an RPG, but it just kind of auto plays. And it just like if you don't have the numbers, then you don't progress. So you just need to jump through all these hoops to get all these bullshit currencies to get things that can get you the numbers.
Yeah, unfortunately, it did have that feature, so it was like it was more of like a I suppose like a money making thing. So it's just kind of yeah, it wasn't the most engaging experience to play the game, but I don't know.
And is the game still available
It's each their
now?
own.
Could I download it if I wanted to?
No, I don't think so. The studio was disbanded back in 2022, I think.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, they had a lot of their currency was in a bank that went under, so all of their funding was gone very quickly.
Genesis asks, what are the chances any of the SCPs made here will be make it into 5K? I would say 95 to 99% chance none of these are going to make it. This is just to illustrate the design process, as much as I would love all these games to go into it. But like I said, if you have a billionaire or millionaire uncle who has got some cash burning a hole in his pocket, if you just want to dump $1,000 of development time, maybe then that would be possible. But because Afraid does not have infinite time and infinite money, these will have to remain on the design pad. But I'm glad to hear, Def Plan.
Yeah.
That thing looks so cool right now. So I think people are really enjoying the fact that you actually are succeeding at making the banana horrifying. I love the fruit sinewy flesh. I think that's like a brilliant touch.
Oh, I've just had an idea for the eyes being inside. Okay.
I cannot wait.
Let's say, for example, that this thing has so it's got this hood, right? It's got this petal-like thing that protects its face. But let's say that its eyes are kind of like free floating in a substance kind of like frog spawn, and it's kind of in between the head and the petals. So we have just all of these unsettling, just heaps of eyes poking out from beneath the hair stuff.
Kidjet says, this reminds me of Cloudy with a chance of meatballs, but horror. Maybe that's something we're missing is, Cloudy with a chance of meatballs remake, but just horrified.
Yeah. Let's see if adding this helps. Just shade. So let's say that these things are kind of like, yeah, it's in this like gross connective tissue.
That is a very nice and unsettling touch. So you're never quite sure if you're looking if it's looking at you.
I wonder, what if we?
Ooh, reptiles. Do
It
sharks?
is described as somewhat reptilian. Okay, it's a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a really really inspired touch.
And I guess patterning. So it'd have like the splotches from the banana skin, but probably would try and get it to look kind of more
We have an interesting suggestion.
similar to a natural design. Yeah.
What if it was rotting, becoming brown in some places, like spoiling? That is an interesting because, like, like bananas get bruised and they get very gross. Personally, I hate eating bruised bananas just because I hate I feel like bananas is the kind of thing where it's like the texture can kind of ruin it, and if you bite into a bad part of it, it just feels like even if it is fully edible. Kyle, do you have any strong feelings towards bananas?
Yeah, it's always one of the worst things when you bite into one and it's just bruised and horrible. Could definitely do that. Might be interesting also maybe to have like little bits of that white furry kind of mold you sometimes get.
Yeah,
Which would need to be done though.
bananas are kind of like mussels or clams, where it's like if you get it in a bad one or you bite into it the wrong way, it can kind of like potentially traumatize you.
I guess that's true, yeah.
It's very easy to have a not so good experience.
Yeah. Let's see. I could probably get some of that. Yeah. Something like that. Let's blend in kind of nicely. Yeah, it's almost like the flesh is pulling apart there, which is nice. Trying to think. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe along its dorsal. 'Cause it's kind of it's also described as kind of shark-like, right? Maybe it's got this kind of membraney sort of like made of the same fibrous hair parts, but
Ooh,
just left over from when it was more amphibious.
so like a vestigial limb.
Yeah, but like maybe it's less like limb and it's more like this is how it kind of it switches its morphology, maybe it's got this fibrous structure.
Just kind of jutting up.
Slowly. Yeah.
Very inspired. At first, I was worried it would be like a little too Godzilla-like, but I think the fibrous, like jutting out, is a very inspired touch.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different. Like thinking like how this could feasibly be done, like things like this, you could probably get away with doing like alpha cards, things like that. But yeah, I suppose trying to be aware of what kind of design requirements the next departments would require is always a strong thing to keep in mind.
So I guess, like, hypothetically, if this was going in, would this be like a charger or stalker enemy? Or would it be a tank? Or it almost feels like a boss enemy.
I'd have this thing probably be some sort of stalker, to be honest. It depends how large it would be, actually. I didn't take note of how big he is, but that would certainly be the biggest contributing factor is how large it is. Because if it's super large, then yeah, it's probably it'd have to be some sort of boss, but it's not that big.
People do seem to like it. People are like, I'd pay to have it in the game. This looks fantastic. This is fantastic looking.
Thank you. Kind of interesting. I think I like the idea of it decaying. I'm not sure who mentioned it, but maybe that could be something cool to add. Like perhaps the tail is like, sorry, no, not the tail. The tail, because it went from fish to reptilian, so the tail would be relatively recent. But perhaps like up here, like this section, like perhaps it's more decayed here and it's like more sort of black brown, and then you get that really bright yellow tail. And maybe that's how it would be colored and such. And you could sort of texture it so the flesh is like really sort of manky and gross, slimy even. Maybe it's actually like just dripping, just oozing banana juice.
You're not going to be able to flambe. I am like amazed that you actually managed to make like a Stephen King monstrosity out of like the goofy banana thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I can't say I don't like it. I quite do actually like it quite a bit actually.
X Reaper asks, how much would I have to spend to have a creature like this in the game? Like, I don't know. You're more informed than me, but like, I imagine this, like, getting this creature in would be like, I don't know, $100K dollars worth of man hours or something like that.
Oh God, I don't know. It's more of a producerial question, so I'm not entirely sure of the overall cost, but it would be like, what would it be? Because you'd have to factor in like how many modelers you would need for it, how many animate, like how long it would take to animate, to rig it, to weight paint, and then to, yeah, of course, make the animations, the sound design. Like I understand the desire to have as many creatures as possible, but logistically, it becomes quite tricky to actually do. Like if you consider like most monster movies, right? Most monster movies only have like 1 or 2 monsters, and it's just because the sheer amount of work involved is insane. So it's a good question, but the majority of the work would come from animation, I would say, because animation is kind of the slowest in terms of the entirety of its pipeline. Because like modeling the creatures is fairly quick, especially if you've got someone speedy like Sterling. Concepting the thing doesn't take too long, like you've seen with me today. Like a couple of hours to a day, and you've pretty much got a proper full rendered thing. Sound design, of course, depends like how difficult it is to get the sounds for it, but also like what kind of sounds, and that can determine how tricky it is. So like if it's just making like guttural noises, you could probably produce that just with Foley, and you wouldn't need to mess around with it too much. But for something like this, you could probably actually use like a banana. You could like squish it, crush it, rip it, produce weird sounds from it. I know the creatures in A Quiet Place, to do the ears opening, they like twisted and ripped lettuce and cabbage to create the sound effects for that. So yeah. So there are interesting ways to get it, but it just depends entirely on the quality of the sound that you're looking for, like what kind of properties you want it to exhibit. But Pfeiffer's definitely the person to talk about for sound design stuff. He knows way more than me.
We do have a stream with Pfeiffer coming up, so we will ask him. You'll have to give me that piece of art, and I'll ask him a hypothetical question of what it would take to sound design this bad boy.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's interesting to hear that like animation is like the most time consuming.
Yeah, and it needs the most tweaks and things as well, because like modeling things is one thing, but getting all of the animations to work and to marry up with the programming, it just takes a lot longer, a lot more tests and things, because like again, it depends on like how complex the environment is that it features in. Because like if you have, for instance, a large environment with lots of spaces and height differences, this thing would need to be able to move amongst those height differences. It would need to be able to move into spaces where it would be a lower roof or a higher roof. Needs to be able to avoid obstacles. Needs to know like if it's got specific attack patterns, like in what scenarios physically does it need to be in to be able to perform that. There's a lot that goes into it, I guess.
So as just to let you guys know, you want a completed SCP-5K. You don't want a Duke Nukem Forever 5K. You want this game to eventually reach its 1.0 versus forever adding an infinite number of SCPs. As cool as it is to like see awesome banana monsters, a banana monster just like means it's just another thing that gets in the way from having a completed product.
The other thing that's quite probably the most important thing actually to determine whether a creature can make it in or not is whether it makes sense in terms of the gameplay and the story, right? Because like let's say, for example, right, if you take let's take any story at all. If halfway through you just have a new creature just thrown in, that's then going to impact the pacing of that story. It's going to impact what happens afterwards. It's going to affect the efficacy of the creatures beforehand and afterhand. So like, for example, let's say you're playing a game and you're facing off against a spider type enemy. And then after that, you have a giant spider boss. That's cool. But if you introduce a giant crab in the middle of that, it's going to completely take away from the boss, right? So knowing exactly where things are meant to be placed so that they have the most impact is really, really tricky to work out, and takes a lot of time and testing and practice to kind of nail that down. So yeah, there's those kind of considerations too.
But what if you attack that crab in its weak point for massive damage? I don't know if I don't know if that meme like falls short. Ages ago, there was like Sony was launching the PS3. They had this demo where it was like, this is Genji 2, a fantasy action game based on real Japanese history. Attack this crab in its weak point for massive damage, and that became kind of like a mid 2020s meme. But aside from my tangent, that is a very astute point. That things have to make sense. They have to go in and make sense within the environmental storytelling. So, I don't know if this banana boy would make sense to throw him in Antarctica.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, because like situationally as well, like it needs to make sense. Because like you could have a creature that works in terms of the story, but then if it doesn't suit the setting, then yeah, it's a no go.
Just breaks immersion. Although you've done a very impressive job of like 5K-ifying this bad boy.
Cheers. Turned out all right. See if I can. Add a few extra little bits. What else? What else can this dude use?
I think you've done a very impressive job. I guess maybe some color, or do you think maybe some more brown spots? Audience, we are getting towards the end. We need to let Kyle go back to work, but do you have any suggestions? What is this guy missing? What else can be added? You know how the banana has the tip on the top? What if his tail has the tip of the banana?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I'm going to pretend this guy's quite large and go like that.
Idea: flooded biological containment zone with the Psi Z entities and the SCP-2761 DNA, and have the actual thing as a boss battle. I think Sterling. I don't know if he's here. I hope he's still working on a 3D mock-up right now, but he might not be available.
I might be working on other stuff. Ooh, I have to wait and see.
I would.
Oh yeah. This one is going to take a little bit clean up. It's got little bits everywhere. There we go. Should just be around the little fibers, I think. It would have been hit the hardest.
So what about the pink, like, lets you, like, kind of see things a little bit better than, like, I don't know, I guess a yellow, when you're kind of doing this blocking?
Yeah. Okay. So any bright color would work. So like a yellow would be fine. I'll use this as like an example. So you can see there's like a few little bits in the corners here that are hard for me to see. If I were to use like a gray, for example, or any other sort of darker color, I start to lose it. I can't see them as clearly
Ah,
because there's just too much. There's not enough contrast between the line art. So if I were to go like a yellow, like that would also work because I can see clearly the difference. Or a white would even work, but sometimes the white's a little tricky because it can mix in with the black and become like a grey, and so it almost looks like it's part of the line art. So going with a color that's completely outside of that spectrum makes it a little bit easier for me to tell. Oops.
I see.
But
Truly
yeah,
tips of the trade. When will we get part 2 of this stream to make more SCPs, 5K SCPs? Probably not too super soon, but I am glad that you enjoyed it, so we'll consider doing this again. As far as I'm concerned, Kyle has done more than his fair share for this evening, so it's always good to get him a break and let him do some work. But I've certainly enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, so we will consider doing another one of this because this is definitely fun. Kyle, I hope this has been an interesting exercise.
yeah, it's been great. It's a lot of fun. Oh no, I blocked that layer. Good damn. Yeah, no, it's been great fun. I'm happy to do this again for sure. Give him a
Giga Chad? More like Giga Kyle.
no way.
I feel so
Let's
bad
see.
though. I
might text you
said
Sarah.
Samir instead of I said Sterling. I need 1,000 apologies to make up for it. Kyle is the biggest Chad.
I'm sure Sterling will forgive you. He's or he won't. Who knows?
Ooh, I really like this
We'll
color,
see.
the coloration.
Yeah, something like this could be nice.
God, I'll have to see if I can like get permission to post these on social. On one hand, it's like super cool. On the other hand, it's like I don't want to create confusion.
Yeah, I mean, oops, what happened there? Switch brush on me. I mean, yeah, you could always. Yeah, I'm not sure how you get around that actually.
Well, you could say in the
I think
message that this is like concept art for what other SCPs would look like in the 5K style, but it's hard. Yeah, I always find that like people somehow like get confused. But god dang, this is this is a really cool monster.
Yeah, it's always a tricky thing. I think. Like you can say it in the message, but I guess some people might still misinterpret it or just see it and not read the message and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I've got to. We did something similar with this with Josie, where we had Ashley, one of the Josie concept artists, do some drawings for Josie, and she basically we had people vote on cat memes, and then she would Josify the cat memes. So she'd do like the Josie interpretation, and she like bang those out really quickly. Although Josie is a little bit more of a less complex character to draw than these SCP monsters. But she did a really impressive, like, she did like a Helldiver Josie. She did like a Grumpy Cat Josie. She did a Terror Cat Josie. She banged out like 6 or 7 Josie memes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Josie is like a much less complicated art style, though, but I still think
Yeah.
this is a really cool achievement. Overwrite monsters are no good unless used for banana bread. And how did you get so good at like sort of coloring? What were your tips to like artists to learn how to color?
I guess it's just basic color theory stuff, really. If you've got like a cool color, so something on the cooler end of the spectrum, you would then pair that with something that's on the warmer end, or vice versa. So, like for example, up here, right, you have some colors that are warmer. So that's like your reds, your oranges, your yellows, your pinks and things. Whereas your blues, greens, and aquas are kind of more cool colors by nature. But then you also have like warm and cool versions of them. So like the darker blues are considered more warm than what the lighter blues are. Same with the greens, like the darker greens, like down here, is considered warmer than what the lighter greens up here would be. And so pairing those either with their complementary colors, so things that are, reversed from like on the opposite side of the color wheel, or with those that are, within that same palette. So for example, like this one, like pretty much every color here, if I scrub through them, is pretty much all within that same range, right? So if you wanted to like make this thing stand out or have like something that's going to really pop, you could grab something that's on the opposite side. So opposite of yellow is like blue. So I could grab like an electric blue perhaps. And I could do some sort of element here, and that's going to stand out a lot. So yeah, a really good thing to do if you don't know like what kind of colors and things to play with is to find something that has the color palette that you do like or that you do want to try and exhibit. So for example, like this is a banana, so I would typically find like a reference of a banana and then go from there. But for the purpose of this and going quick, I'm just gonna block it all in as is. But yeah, looking at lots of references, like if you ever get stuck with something, just always go back to references. Because as much as it's cool to be able to draw straight from memory, we don't always remember things correctly, and we also don't always have the most accurate sense of color with certain things. So yeah, it is well worthwhile trying to get as much influence from outside as possible, I guess.
Goliath asks,
you're going to draw a tree, look at a tree.
Goliath asks, any tips on shading?
On shading?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's different methods that you can use. You can blend with textured brushes, like what I'm doing kind of at the moment. And this just adds like a little bit of extra noise and detail to what you're producing. Or you can blend to like in the way in which I was doing earlier, where I'm just using essentially a soft brush and a hard brush. That's really good for like soft surfaces, like squishy surfaces, things that are shiny. If it's how do I describe it? Wait, hang on. I'll show you an example. Yeah. So you can see on here, like I'm doing this kind of sketching. You can see that this is sort of like a matte surface. It's not very shiny. Whereas if I were to take the same colors, right, and a soft brush, oops, and I were to just lay down some color there, very similar to what I was doing earlier, add some extra color, and then what? Why is it blending like that? Oh, could change the blend mode on me. That's why. So let's say you've got something like this, and just give it like a border or something. Let's just say we've got, no, wait, too small. Let's say we've got this like, I don't know, fruit shape, like a mango. If you wanted to Okay, yeah, not that layer. If you wanted to add some sort of sense of depth to this, like two things to bear in mind. The first is bounce light. So if we consider that this is in a space, let's say that over on this side we've got blue, and on this side we've got some green. You would want to add just a little bit of that color to influence the actual shape itself. Oops. Just so it's contextually within the space. But then what you also do to give it like a shiny look is you can add your like specular kind of highlights and things to that object. And from a distance, that will then start to make it look kind of shinier. You can do that with multiple things. Depending on how shiny you want it, you can start adding other colors, ones from the environment, and you can end up with something that looks a little bit like glass. Versus if you do something like this, where the lighting might be, much softer, and so it's not a shiny surface per se. So you'd shade it like that, and add your highlights in like that. Yeah, it just depends on what kind of material you're trying to emulate.
Well, thank you for that masterclass in shading.
Yeah. Sorry, I might have missed the point there too. Actually, the like shading, like there's different tools that you can use, like smudge tools and blur tools and things to blend colors together, if that's what you're referring to. But personally, I just like to just layer things. It's just up to personal preference, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that was a question from the audience. They were just kind of curious, but I think you gave them more than their money's worth to give an overview of how to properly shade and color.
Cool.
I feel like I should be paying for Photoshop lessons right now. Well, it never hurts to start. Isn't Photoshop kind of like the industry standard for illustrators? Or there's a lot you can do with Photoshop.
Yeah, it is. You can do an insane amount, and it is well worth learning. I've found even just for like daily life, it's really useful. If you need to sign a document or something, you can always just throw it in, sign it digitally, and you don't have to worry about getting it printed and all that hassle.
Life hack! Oh my god!
Well, it's just useful. You can just do so much with it if you've learnt the skills. What else can you do? Give him some glam. What kind of eyes should we give him?
I thought you would like the sort of lizard cross eyes, or do you think you want to do more like a circle eye, like a shark, to give it kind of like that, dead-eyed expression that sharks are famous for?
Yeah, could do that. What do you guys reckon?
All right. What do you want? Lizard?
Dead eyes or lizard?
Dead eyes or lizard eyes? What do you want? Let your voices heard. Dead eyes or lizard eyes? I want to see reactions. We got one vote for lizard eyes. One vote for dead eyes. 1-1. Let's see some more reactions. Dead or lizard? 2 votes for lizards. We've got 2 votes for lizards, 1 vote for dead eyes, 3 votes for lizards. Dead lizards. Recast your vote, Amazing Ulysses. 1 lizard. I think people are leaning towards dead eyes.
Dead eyes. All right. Give this guy a bit of that manky look that I was talking about before. But
The real question is, oh. All right, so someone put in a poll for me. All right. Lizards winning. Dead eyes winning. Oh my god, this is intense. 5 for dead, 4 for lizard. We got 2 votes on YouTube for dead eyes. Lizard gang, rise up. People are trying to defend your initial choice of the lizard eyes. Oh, now it's 50-50. Come on, we got like 15 people in here. You could break the lizards rising up. Lizards rising up. Hugh Hamilton music, rise up. What eyes? All right, now I added the YouTube poll to see if there's any discourse. Lizards winning. Lizard squad is reigned supreme. The lizards have risen up. Oh my god, it's 50-50 on YouTube as well.
Sick.
This is where democracy gets sticky. This is where it gets messier than an overripe banana and a bad piece of banana cake. So Lizard is the de facto winner on Discord so far with 12 votes. 7 of those votes have gone to Lizard. And Dead Eyes is reigning supreme on YouTube. But overall, I'd say, now it's 50-50. 4 votes for Lizard, 4 votes for Dead. So I think the consensus is Lizard. The Lizard people have won. The Lizard people rose up. So Shark Dead Eyes are gone. Lizard Eyes reign supreme.
All right. We'll give that a crack then. Where is it? Clicking last. I'm just going to quickly. It's a little bit better transition. And shade that along the actual lines. Okay, Banana Man. Let's see how we go. Right. Okay, so eyes. What kind of eyes? Let's give him. Let's just do it on a new layer. Give it a go.
Someone said combine both. I think the Lizard Eyes won. That's the general consensus I got from the voting. God dang,
Yeah,
was it?
Cool.
It was very vicious there for a minute.
All right. Let's see. If a banana had eyes, they would probably be. I don't know. I'll do yellow to start, and then we'll see how it looks. And if it doesn't work, we'll go for something else.
Genesis asks how to donate money to get SCP-2761 in the game. Good question. I don't know. We'll have to have a GoFundMe or something. I would say, as of right now, your best way to donate money is to buy merch from the Affray store. Pro thinks he's SCP-682. Well, I'll tell you this much. SCP-682 ain't going to make a very good banana bread. God, I kind of want this guy on a shirt.
Noise. I always forget I'm supposed to set that to Gaussian, I think. Then it does it in black and white for me. Set that to color burn, so it only affects the blacks. Dark colors, rather. Is that correct? No, that's not even clicked on. Okay, there we go. Now we got some texture. Okay. Right. Drop that around there. And as an absolute last touch, I will add some extra shade because this guy. Let's do that. And grab that. All right, and I haven't been doing this for any of them, but I should. If I'm not on the raise, jump back there and give him a little bit of ground to stand on. Just a little bit of something. I could probably actually grab all of them. Oops. What's that? Oh, wrong keyboard. Ah! That is the beautiful wonder of duplicate. So guys, normally I work on Mac, which judge me for that as you will, but I'm not entirely used to all of the shortcuts being different. I forget. Okay. Silhouette looks nice. That's cool.
That is a nice silhouette.
Drop that down. Let's filter, blur, Gaussian blur, blur that by like 10. Filter, blur, motion blur, distance, good, 20. Preview. I cannot see it doing anything. All right, fine. Set it to, no, I'll leave it as is. Lock it. No, yeah, no. Lock it. Eraser. Large brush. And I don't like it. No point to it.
Really? What don't you like? What's not working for you?
It looks a bit messy. No, just the shadow. I think the rest of it's fine.
People are saying that like I'd buy shirts of these. I mean that it's a lot more possible to get this on a shirt than it is to get it on the game. But I have to bring that before the 05 council to see. I mean that's actually a cool idea. That would be interesting to put these alternate SCPs on T-shirts. But you know, I'd have to run it by Bowman and Trey, see what they think. X-Streeper says, I'm gonna learn how to 3D model so I can create this thing. You did kind of create this weird sort of SCP Jurassic Park. You know, you've got the little guy, and then you've got the big thing, and Foundation of Fruit Products, a division of Affray, 05 approved.
Let's see, can I get all three of these guys in the same image? Yes, I can. Where are the sketches? There. No. What? Okay, I guess it was just part of the sketches. Well, a shame. This guy. Where are you? These ones? Yeah.
People are already demanding a plush. After I was like spending weeks, like, you know, getting you to get the 173B plush. I don't know if we'll be doing a banana plush so soon, but I love the enthusiasm. If you keep on spamming it in every channel, who knows? Maybe you'll put it in a position where they cannot not turn this version of the SCP design into a awesome plush.
There we go.
Susie Het says, insane person who's not aware of logistics or manufacturing difficulties. Yeah, I'd love this as a 6 foot tall plush. 6 foot tall. I'd buy instantly. The $200 banana plush.
Okay, I think. Oh wow, I do not like the navigation controls here. These are annoying. Give him something. And he could be floating. He can have a little shadow back there or something.
The unholy trio. The unholy trinity.
All right, sweet. Let me grab all of that. Pop that in there. Give it a layer mask. Why? Damn it. The annoying thing about this is I can't see the bounds of. There it is.
A question from
I don't want to escape.
Question from Susie. What tablet do you use, Mr. Kyle White Reaper?
I use a Wacom Cintiq, the 16-inch one, I think. Stop scaling. It won't stop scaling. That's so frustrating. There we go. Okay. Kind of center there. Nice. All right, hang on. I'll see if I can get the sketches back in as well.
Fantastic. Well, these are some amazing creatures. I think you did some outstanding work tonight. I hope all of you enjoyed this. People are asking you to put it in the chat. I don't know. Do you think that would cause the too much trouble to put it in the Discord chat, or do you think that's a little too risky?
Put these in.
Put the.
I can do that.
Awesome.
That should be all right.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge risk. Just some artwork in chat.
Yeah. Do that. Grab that. Scale it. Let's see. This one. Yeah. Where are the? Did I do sketches for this one? Maybe I just jumped straight in.
Well, if you did, it
Okay,
was
my
even
bad.
more impressive.
Nope, don't do that. Oh my gosh. This one, yeah. So I want to eliminate them, nick off. And if anyone ends up doing stuff like this, I strongly suggest that what do I suggest? I suggest nothing. Don't mind me, I'm just rambling. All right. That should be decent like that.
People are
Okay.
saying justice for SC
Please.
for
Bloody
2761.
Which one?
Justice for the banana one. Justice for 2761. I love that we've inspired a banana revolution.
Okay, there we go. Boom. I did have the names of these ones up. I've forgotten them all.
The banana is whatchamacallit? It's 2761. I think the blade monster is 3031, and then the headlight is
Wait. What was the banana one?
that is 2761.
2761. I think its colloquial name is Bananazilla or something.
Yes, that is what it is. The colloquial name.
Sweet. All right. And I've completely forgotten the other one.
It is 3031. Or no, 5031. 5031. My bad. I have one digit off.
5031. Beautiful. And this is what's he called?
5031 is called. Give me 2 seconds. I don't know if it has like a colloquial name. Yet another murder monster seems to be the name that comes up. Another murder monster.
Cool. All right. Done. Lovely. Haven't saved this whole time. That was smart.
You're playing with fire. Can you imagine? You deny the world, and all they have is this video record.
More not. Should I put a warning on here saying not not for use?
Yeah, exactly.
What should that be? Far out. Not for. I guess just
not for external use or external display. Or internal use only.
Not indicative of in-game.
Oh, not indicative.
Something like that.
Yeah. I think that's the safest way to assume no confusion.
Cool. All right. Cool. Now I have to find it. All right. If anyone wanted to have a suss of that. Beautiful.
Awesome. I think
awesome.
Just yeah, there we go. You've got it in the Discord chat. Enjoy it in the events. The glory of Kyle's wonderful improv jam session. Maybe we'll do another one of these in the future. This was a fascinating look into the art design process. I hope you all learned something about the incredible effort that Frey puts into designing each of our interpretations of the SCP canon. Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time out for this wonderful evening.
No worries at all. Thanks, guys. I hope you all learned something a bit cool about how we go about it. And yeah, thanks for having me again. This is it's good stuff. Hopefully get to do it again in the future.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will come knocking on your door. I will always looking to bring Frey people out for this wonderful showcase. I always love hosting them. Thank you all for coming out. Next week, we will be premiering the trailer. So look out for an announcement in time for that. We will also have a session where we will go into the Q&A procedures as detailed in Trey's post. And there is a special event I am cooking up right now. I don't want to quite reveal what it is, but I think it'll be a very fun surprise for all of you guys out there. And I can't wait for you to see it. So stay tuned on the socials, stay tuned on the Discord event tab, and keep an eye peeled for our next big event. And Kyle, have a wonderful work day. Now we'll let you actually get something done and be productive. And yeah, I hope everyone had a good time.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, guys.
It's always hardest to say goodbye, but good night, people. And thank
see you guys. Bye.
Thank you for coming.